Chapter 2060. There used to be an old ginseng here. Although the plant has long withered, its essence is still here. In the dense forest, the sword spirit pointed at a place under his feet. A ginseng that can leave its essence must be at least 10,000 years old. Moreover, this is not an ordinary ginseng. You dig and see. Pay attention to use your elemental energy to confine this area. Once you dig it out, immediately put it into the space and scatter it in the medicine field. If you lose even a little bit of its essence, you won't be able to find it even if you cry. Chu Yang sweated profusely and began to do the hard work. He had only dug down 3 feet when he clearly felt a burst of warmth. He couldn't help but slightly frown and continue to dig down. Suddenly, a milky white shadow scuttled out from the ground with a whoosh sound and flew out like lightning. That flying white shadow hit the elemental energy confinement circle that Chu Yang had set up and fell to the ground with a bang. Chu Yang looked at it and saw that it was a small mass of milky white chaotic energy. Although it was very small, it was full of the purest life energy. He waved his hand and caught it in his hand. He looked at it over and over. This is the essence of ginseng? The sword spirit nodded, and it's the essence of ginseng that already has a little bit of consciousness. It's gathered and not scattered. It's really a good thing. Why are you standing there like a fool? Are you intoxicated? Hurry up and send it to the medicine field. Put it in our ginseng land. The elixirs there will immediately snatch this mass of energy. The quality will also be greatly improved. Chu Yang, who was full of black lines, didn't dare to delay. He hurriedly sent it in. Sure enough, the jade snow spirit ginseng and the other ginseng inside, no matter what kind of ginseng it was, upon sensing this extremely pure energy, their branches instantly swayed, revealing an extremely urgent feeling. As soon as they sprinkled down, all kinds of life forces suddenly erupted, each grabbing a little bit and fiercely pulling it towards their own side. This situation was like a tug of war. Moreover, it was as if they were drinking milk and drinking milk. Chu Yang's eyebrows twitched as he watched the fierce fighting. This seemed a bit too humane, right? Could it be more exaggerated? Energy of wood and energy. There's a blood-purple Ganoderma over there. It's at least 50,000 years old. There's the essence of fleeceflower below. It's at least 10,000 years old. There's red core ginseng here. It's the best stuff. You must be very careful when digging. Chu Yang continued to work hard along with the sword spirit's continuous guidance. He collected the top-grade elixirs one after another. He felt as if his soul was singing happily. He didn't feel the slightest bit tired. The harvest this time seems to be too big. Just as the sword spirit said, I've struck gold. However, Chu Yang also knew the principle of not overdoing it. He would only take 1 stalk of each kind of elixir. No matter how many there were, he would only take 1 stalk. If there were very few of them, he would try his best to find their seeds and put them into the elixir field in the tribulation space. As for the main body, he would definitely not touch it. After all, this was the headquarters of Duke Yu's elf clan. So, there would be many places where they could use these elixirs in the future. What if Chu Yang really searched them thoroughly and hung them up? That would be too unkind of him. How could he not be kind enough to him when he was so kind to him? After walking around for a while, Chu Yang finally discovered that this abandoned city was actually filled with big and small palaces and residences. They were originally hidden in the void, but as the energy from the spring of life grew stronger and stronger, they slowly reappeared one by one. Waves of verdant greenery appeared in the sky. In the distance, Duke Yu stood on the roof of the most magnificent elf king palace. He watched as clusters of vigorous greenery appeared in the sky one after another. Countless palaces appeared in the city of elves. Endless greenery began to gather and surge in the sky. He couldn't help but burst into tears. The elf clan's 100,000-year dream. Today it was complete. It was finally complete. Chu Yang didn't enter the residences or palaces of the elves. He only looked at them from afar. What he saw made him a lot of doubts. Sword Spirit, did you notice that these palaces seem to be green? And as if they have life? Could the palaces be alive? The Sword Spirit rolled his eyes. It would be strange if they were dead. Didn't you see that even this city of elves is green and has life fluctuations? What's so strange about the palaces being alive? Don't you know that the entire city of elves is made up of trees? It's essentially just a tree. Tree? A tree? Are you serious? Chu Yang was completely shocked. Looking around, there were flowers, grass, land and buildings. Other than the color, it was no different from ordinary palaces and residences. These furniture were actually trees? You mean, this entire city of elves is actually the internal space of a tree? We're actually... Chu Yang asked in shock. Are you an idiot? Do you still need to ask? It's the truth. The sword spirit smiled. This is the internal space of a big tree. To put it in simpler terms, we are guests in a tree hole. Do you understand now? Boorish people? Chu Yang was completely dumbfounded. He was too shocked. He was so shocked that he didn't know how to react. What kind of tree was it? It was actually so big? The internal space of the tree could actually accommodate tens of millions of people. It could also provide for living, reproduction, construction, and other survival needs. It could even form a world of its own inside for planting. This? What kind of tree is this? Minister Chu's mouth was agape. It's too big. Too big? Of course it's not. This tree is naturally an elven tree. The sword spirit said only one tree is allowed to appear in a continent, so it's not surprising that it's a little bigger. Also, there are many continents and plains that actually don't have elven trees. Only with the premise of having an elven tree, and also after the elven tree has grown to a certain extent, there's a slight possibility of the elves being born. Therefore, the elves are actually a very rare species. An elven tree is actually equivalent to a small world, a rather complete small world. The sword spirit said, "Do you know heavenly wood? It's the kind of wood that has a storage function. It's actually a branch of the elven tree, just not as awesome as the elven tree." Chu Yang was shocked again. So there really are such bizarre things in the world. Minister Chu sighed. What's so bizarre about it? Isn't it because you're too inexperienced? The interior of the elven tree is naturally the most suitable for the elves to grow. Of course, humans can also live normally inside. But the elven tree is a little too rich for ordinary people, and the spiritual energy is also too dense. So, unless it's a high-level human cultivator, staying here for a long time will harm the body. This is the so-called, too much is as bad as not enough, and the body can't withstand the nourishment. The sword spirit said, I don't need to explain the principle of, too much nourishment is harmful to the body, right? I understand. Chu Yang nodded, indicating that he really understood. But in reality, his mind was still a mess. So this is a tree and I'm inside a tree. Oh my God. But don't think that the elven tree is really huge. In fact, the elven tree doesn't look very big from the outside. It can only grow an inch in 1,000 years. If it grows in a forest, it won't be eye-catching at all. Very few people can recognize it. But as long as it's an elven tree that can be hugged around, it's already formed a small world inside, the sword spirit said with a smile. It's really amazing. Chu Yang exclaimed from the bottom of his heart. Today seemed to be a day of amazement for a certain king of hell. In addition to forming a small world, the elven tree also has a very magical characteristic. That is, all the heavenly treasures within a radius of 1,000 miles will be automatically absorbed into its own space. This distance of 1,000 miles is only the ability of a 10,000-year-old elven tree. As the elven tree grows older, this ability will also cover a wider area. Other plants definitely won't have the ability to resist being absorbed, the sword spirit said, so, as long as the elven tree exists, it's absolutely impossible for any heavenly treasures to exist in this forest. He smiled and said, actually, this isn't difficult to discover. When you were up there just now, did you discover even a single medicinal herb in such a big forest? Chu Yang recalled for a while and was finally convinced. Indeed, there wasn't any. Not to mention heavenly treasures or emperor treasures, there wasn't even any ordinary medicinal herbs. But how could I have thought of these at that time? He was really convinced. At first, Chu Yang was still puzzled. Even in a remote mountain, there would be elixirs or medicinal herbs. But in such a vast and boundless forest, where there were few people, he actually didn't discover any. I see. The sword spirit said, so, inside the elven tree is the most complete treasure trove. Any medicinal herb, as long as it exists in this continent, can be found here. You'd better hurry up and work. This time, we've really entered a treasure trove. Even if we only take one of each, our medicinal field can at least double. This is the most conservative estimate. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air and immediately went back to work. But in his heart, he firmly memorized all the information about the elven tree. As the two walked, they collected elixirs along the way. With the recovery of the city of elves, the spiritual energy gradually became richer and richer, and they could discover more and more elixirs. Even with Chu Yang's cultivation, he actually felt that his arms were really working a little too frequently. He actually felt a little tired. Although he was happy and even inexplicably excited, he still felt tired, and there was a tendency for it to become more and more serious. There's more over there. Chu Yang's hands were sore, and a long-lost feeling of fatigue gradually surfaced in his heart. Sword Spirit, how many types of herbs have we collected in total? Chu Yang massaged his waist. The Sword Spirit did a rough calculation and said casually, not a lot, less than 2,000 types in total. It's not even the number I expected. Chu Yang was speechless. Chapter 2061. Duke Yu said solemnly, Her Majesty sacrificed her supreme cultivation and used all of her cultivation to sink the entire city of fairies into the ground and preserve it here. She also destroyed all of her divine sense and turned it into a protective shield for the city of fairies. Only then did she ensure that the city of fairies remained intact until today. Chu Yang was silent for a moment. Feeling the sorrow and depression in his heart, he asked softly, Do you know, what is the name of this empress? Duke Yu said, Her Majesty's surname is Wu. Her name is Wu Qiongxiao. Wu Qiongxiao. Chu Yang murmured this name. He couldn't help but look again. The elven empress' calm but majestic gaze also seemed to look back at him calmly at this moment. Chu Yang felt his heart throbbing violently again. As he looked around, he realized that there were many other decorations in the hall. On the left and right walls, there was a piece of calligraphy hanging on each wall. The handwriting was the same. It was obvious that they were all written by the elven empress. While the handwriting was beautiful, it also revealed a boundless majesty and dominance. On the left was, Yu Ping Life's Wish, Breaking Weight, Wu Qiongxiao, Shaking the Heavens, Unable to be Peerless, Unable to Break Heaven. Chu Yang's heart trembled. This empress is really heroic. Unable to be peerless and invincible, she would rather stay here than break through the void and ascend. On the right wall, there were only 5 simple words. I dance alone in the wind and cloud. Dance alone in the wind and cloud. Could it be that there was no one in the world who could compete with her back then? Chu Yang looked carefully again. The empress's gaze actually followed him again. This time, Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. This time, he didn't move his eyes away for a long time. He didn't know how much time had passed. Perhaps it was the blink of an eye, or perhaps it was a lifetime. Suddenly, a crash broke the silence. On both sides of the empress's throne, a piece of snow-white paper suddenly flowed out. With a whoosh, it directly extended several feet from the armrests of the throne and laid flat on the ground. It was as if the elven empress had suddenly stood up. Her figure was graceful, and the snow-white sleeves on both sides swayed in the air. It was also as if a beauty had just finished dancing in the sky and was resting on the chair. Her long sleeves dragged on the ground, leaving only infinite gentleness. Although it was just 2 pieces of white paper that suddenly appeared, the peerless beauty of this moment was deeply imprinted in the minds of everyone who saw it, and it would never fade away. Duke Yu exclaimed in surprise. Such a phenomenon didn't happen when I was here. So, why did Chu Yang trigger such a strange phenomenon when he arrived? What was the reason? And what kind of changes would this change bring about? At this moment, words abruptly appeared on the originally spotless white paper. Golden words flickered from nothingness and gradually appeared on the white paper. Chu Yang looked over. On the first piece of paper on the left was written, "Who will accompany me? Dancing with the wind and clouds?" The second one on the right wrote, "Who will accompany me world-defying?" These two lines of words were actually questions. Who's going to dance with me? Who will accompany me to the world-defying heavens? Although it was a question, the disdainful aura contained within was unparalleled. Perhaps only the two of them could accompany each other. That peerless arrogance seemed to have crossed over 100,000 years and arrived in the sky. It was arrogance, aloofness, but also loneliness and solitude. In addition, there was also a trace of helplessness. Chu Yang was startled. He suddenly raised his head. Her Majesty the Empress was still sitting gracefully as before. Her eyes were slightly narrowed, and her gaze seemed to be fixed on him. That aura of a ruler descending upon the world seemed to be coming at him at any time. Chu Yang suddenly understood where the sense of familiarity that he felt came from. That kind of gaze, gentleness, affection, and the charm between her brows. This elven empress was actually so similar to Jianghu. Although their appearances were very different, Chu Yang had felt that kind of special feeling from Jianghu countless times. And that kind of demeanor of a ruler descending upon the world was so similar to Tai Butian's. It was the empress who similarly pitted the world and pitted the people. Also, that unyielding strength in her bones and her weak persistence were no different from Wu Qianqian's. They were shockingly similar. Finally, that heroic spirit and carefreeness of moving unhindered and killing all over the world was exactly the same as Zi Sheqing's. Chu Yang's heart changed for a while. He connected the characteristics of Jianghu, Wu Qianqian, Zi Sheqing and Tai Butian together. After mixing them together, he closed his eyes and felt as if the fairy empress was standing right in front of him, standing calmly. Suddenly, Chu Yang's heart ached so much that it hurt. How many years have you been alone? How many years have you been looking forward to? And how many years have you been helpless? Who will accompany me to dance in the clouds? Who will accompany me to conquer the world? Chu Yang's heart was in turmoil. His blood surged. He suddenly blurted out, "Me. I'll accompany you. I'll accompany you. I'll accompany you to dance in the clouds. I'll accompany you to conquer the world." While his voice was still echoing, the elven empress' slightly narrowed eyes seemed to suddenly flash. Then, a long sigh, as if she was relieved of a heavy burden, rang in the air. Then, a ball of colorful light suddenly erupted from the elven empress. At first, it was just a faint glow. Gradually, that graceful and elegant figure could no longer be seen. A soft and affectionate voice, yet illusory like a dream, recited, "You accompany me to dance in the clouds. The world." Suddenly, an inexplicable light flashed out from the elven empress. As if reluctant to leave, it circled around the hall once. Then, it broke through the air like lightning and disappeared without a trace. The only direction that was known was the east. Both of them were shocked by this turn of events. They were so shocked that they were almost speechless. They just stared blankly at it. Then, the light on the elven empress seemed to have dimmed a little. Then, another ray of light separated and circled around the hall. Then, it rushed out of the door and disappeared without a trace. This time, the direction that it went was due west. Then, another two rays of light flashed one after another, one in the south and one in the north. They also disappeared without a trace. As the four rays of light gradually disappeared, another change occurred. Both of them looked at the elven empress again. They were both shocked. They saw that the elven emperor's throne was empty. The elven empress Wu Qianxiao, who was still there just now, had disappeared. It was as if she had turned into four rays of light just now and drifted away with the wind. She no longer existed in this world. All the past and traces of her existence were just a dream. Everything was illusory, only a soft sigh, which seemed to come from the underworld, seemed to still reverberate faintly in the hall. Both of them felt as if they had an extremely bizarre dream. They were at a loss. Until now, they still felt that it was unreal. Her Majesty actually disappeared just like that? How can this be? Duke Yu was disappointed and frustrated. Chu Yang took a deep breath. He felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his heart. Although he was still a little disappointed, he felt as if he had accomplished something in his heart. He was actually exceptionally relaxed. He even felt a little strange about his state of mind. It was reasonable for him to be disappointed and sad. How can this be? However, in Chu Yang's heart, there seemed to be a faint feeling that the Elven Empress had not really disappeared. That aura seemed to still be reverberating around him, or even it had always been there and had never left at all. Before, after. You accompanied me to dance with the wind and clouds. I accompanied you to conquer the world. Chu Yang murmured. He looked at the empty throne thoughtfully, but the shadows of 4 people inexplicably appeared in his heart. Mo Qingwu, Wu Qianqian, Tai Badian, Zi Xieching. Just as the 2 of them were in a daze, light suddenly appeared on the throne again. A sparkling thing suddenly rose up, bringing with it a long-lost excitement and a pleasant surprise of regaining something that had been lost. That's Her Majesty's eternal jade sky golden buyao. Duke Yu's eyes flashed as he explained. Unexpectedly, the Calamity Sword suddenly let out a sword cry. It suddenly leaped into the air like a dragon. As if it was extremely excited, it shuttled back and forth in the air. A clear sound of pleasant surprise and a little shyness suddenly appeared. The Elven Empress' eternal jade sky golden buyao suddenly emitted a dazzling milky white light. Then, the light suddenly paused and transformed into something that looked very soft, swaying in the air. Sword tassel. It's a sword tassel. Chu Yang's eyes focused, and his breathing almost stopped. After the golden buyao transformed into a new form, it actually turned into a sword tassel that was infinitely soft, infinitely affectionate, and infinitely attached. Floating in the air, it faintly gave off a delicate and pitiful feeling. Sword tassel. Chu Yang only felt an inexplicable surge in his heart. Now, he actually did not have the pleasant surprise of finally finding the 8th fragment of the Calamity Sword at all. Instead, he was filled with a kind of infinite gentle joy of regaining something that had been lost. He took 2 steps forward impatiently. His face was a little red, and his right hand trembled uncontrollably as he slowly reached out. The sword tassel floated pitifully in the air, as if it was waiting for something, and also nervous about something. Seeing Chu Yang reach out his hand to it, it seemed to finally be relieved. It gently floated down from the air and landed in Chu Yang's palm. An incomparably familiar and infinitely gentle feeling of satisfaction rose in Chu Yang's heart. Chu Yang even had an inexplicable impulse to put the sword tassel on his mouth and kiss it. Chu Yang gently picked up the sword tassel and gently pressed it against his face. Feeling that extremely soft and intimate touch, his heart was inexplicably happy and gratified. The Calamity Sword in the air once again let out an extremely loud sword cry. The sword tassel flew up from Chu Yang's hand and lightly met the sword tassel. Silently, the first 7 fragments of the sword and the sword tassel merged together. Suddenly, a burst of dazzling light burst out and rushed into the air. It actually soared for tens of thousands of miles. It was unknown how high it was or how far it was. The Calamity Sword shuttled back and forth rapidly in the air. In Chu Yang's Calamity space, the sword spirit's expression was unusually solemn as he sat cross-legged. A voice slowly sounded in Chu Yang's mind. It was gentle and clear, with infinite affection, as if someone was singing and dancing, singing and dancing. Chu Yang felt as if he was in a dream again. He only heard the voice say with infinite affection, "Light like a dream, dancing enchantingly in the sea of blood and the mountain of bones, holding a sword for thousands of miles, don't ask me in life and death, to the heavens." Chapter 2062. As long as he followed this feeling and walked down this path, he would be able to reach the strength of his divine soul just now, or even stronger. Secondly, although that energy would inevitably dissipate completely, it would still leave behind some faint traces in his divine soul. Even if it was just a little trace, it would already be a great thing that ordinary experts would never dream of. The white shadow watched as Chu Yang carefully sensed the changes in his soul, but he didn't urge him at all. He was actually waiting patiently. After a long, long time, Chu Yang finally finished memorizing it in a serious manner, and raised his head. You're good. Really good. The white shadow's voice was firm. Chu Yang's eyes were calm. He said, You flatter me. After experiencing that kind of pain, Chu Yang's mind could be said to be unshakable even by thunder. Not to mention a compliment, even if he became the idol of the entire universe. Chu Yang felt that he wouldn't be that excited. Flatter? I never flatter people. I haven't been so polite in a long time. The white shadow chuckled. Because in this world, there are very few people who can make me appreciate them. There's no one who can make me speak courteously to them. I'm flattered by your appreciation. Chu Yang smiled faintly. He really didn't care about honor or disgrace. Let's cut to the chase. I didn't come here today to praise you. The man chuckled. So, you don't have to be too complacent. Chu Yang was speechless. What kind of person is this? What kind of thinking is this? When did I become complacent? Besides, I didn't say anything. You're the one who has been talking about the Calamity Sword. You have the first 8 pieces. But do you know where the sword spirit is? The white shadow said indifferently. When he said this, the sword spirit's body clearly trembled. There was a trace of despair in his eyes. That was the most hopeless expression. Where is the sword spirit? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. His interest was piqued. The sword spirit can be said to be far away, but it can also be said to be right in front of you. The white shadow said indifferently, It depends on what you do. If you want, you can get the sword spirit right now. Do you want it? Chu Yang's eyes revealed a doubtful look. I created this calamity sword with my own hands. You can only unleash 1/10,000th of its power. The white figure smiled. The key lies in the sword's soul. Chu Yang said, I'd like to hear the details. Bai Yin's eyes flickered as he said, I'll explain it in the simplest way. For example, this little phoenix in front of you. He pointed at the sword spirit. Phoenix? Chu Yang looked at the sword spirit in confusion. Chu Yang had already guessed this. The sword spirit's attitude towards the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan was very strange. He almost did everything he could to suppress the Dragon Clan. On the other hand, he also endlessly praised the Phoenix Clan. Chu Yang had already vaguely sensed this. It was only today that it was confirmed by the white shadow. I wasn't the one who captured the true spirit of this phoenix. The white shadow's voice was calm and carried a hint of disdain. But he already existed when the Calamity Sword was first formed. Furthermore, he was sealed in the Calamity Sword land, as a guide for the master of the Calamity Sword. So, this phoenix is actually the sword spirit of Calamity Sword, Bai Yin said in a low voice. The sword spirit is the sword spirit? How can that be? The two are the same. Chu Yang suddenly raised his head. The sword spirit couldn't bear it anymore. His whole body trembled violently. The two are naturally not the same. The sword spirit isn't the sword spirit yet. Bai Yin said slowly, but if you want him to be, then he is. The sword spirit can transform into the sword spirit at any time. Chu Yang pondered. Because I'm here. I only need to disperse his true spirit and completely integrate it into the Calamity Sword. Then he'll be the sword spirit. This is very simple for me. Bai Yin said softly. His voice was faintly oppressive. So, as long as you nod your head, you'll immediately have the complete version of Calamity Sword. Your strength will be several times stronger than it is now. In the entire heaven, no one will be your opponent. Am I clear? Chu Yang pondered for a moment and said, Your Excellency, it's very simple. I still don't understand the mystery. Bai Yin said, You don't need to understand the mystery. It's not important. You only need to know that you can get the sword spirit this way. That's enough. The rest is not important. But according to what you just said, I believe that there should be another way to get the sword spirit. What is it? Chu Yang said calmly. The other way is as difficult as climbing the sky. I don't recommend it to you. Bai Yin's eyes sharpened. Even the person who sealed this phoenix in the Calamity Sword may not be able to meet this condition. The sword I made is not something that ordinary people can integrate. If you choose this path, the complete Calamity Sword may not be a help. Instead, it may be a great obstacle for you to reach the peak of the Great Tao. Chu Yang's eyes were burning like flames. How difficult is it? What is the method? Please tell me. Bai Yin smiled. That method is even simpler. You'll have to refine it yourself. This time, he knew that Chu Yang would be even more confused. Without waiting for Chu Yang to ask, he continued to explain. A divine sword has its own life and spirituality. The Calamity Sword was originally created by me, and I gave it its initial life. However, it didn't grow in my hands. In this way, how many experiences do you have? Chu Yang nodded. He more or less understood what Bai Yin meant. He even vaguely guessed the true meaning of using yourself to refine it. A sword can also reach the peak. The Calamity Sword has such potential. However, its growth requires its owner to nurture it with his own mind. Only after going through thick and thin together can it become a sword master. However, the path of a sword master is naturally filled with endless bloodshed, until he reaches a certain level of strength. During this process, the sword itself will swallow everything it can. When all the conditions are met, the sword master can cut out his own unique killing intent and refine the sword as his second primordial spirit. At that time, it will be the real sword spirit, the invincible sword spirit. At that time, you will know your true Tao. Bai Yin said indifferently, and you will see the other side of your life. However, that will be a period of eternity. It will be so long that even the so-called gods of your world may not be able to wait that long. That is a path that requires great opportunities. You have to seize every opportunity to improve your chances. And those are things that you need to grasp, choose, fight for, or create, and then grasp. When Bai Yin said this, Chu Yang lowered his head and fell silent. He didn't say anything for a long time. The despair in Sword Spirit's eyes grew stronger. However, that is too troublesome. I really don't recommend you to choose that path. Moreover, when your cultivation reaches that level, even if you have a sword in your hand, you will be immortal even if you don't have a sword. Bai Yin said slowly, the easiest way is to scatter the sword spirit and turn it into a sword spirit. In this way, you can immediately increase your power and become invincible in the world. You won't lose anything. You just have to sacrifice this little phoenix. In fact, it's a coincidence. If I wasn't here, you might not be able to scatter the sword spirit on your own with your cultivation. However, with me here, everything is simple. You are really lucky. Maybe you have some feelings for each other because of the time you spent together, but he is still just a shadow. As long as you sacrifice him, you will become a calamity sword. In the end, although it will not be as powerful as the sword spirit divine weapon I just mentioned, it will still be the best weapon in the world. The white shadow said, the choice has nothing to do with the great Tao. It doesn't matter how you choose. It's up to you to choose the easy one or the difficult one. I still recommend you to choose the former. After all, meeting me is also an opportunity, a rare opportunity. Chu Yang didn't say anything for a long time. The calamity space was completely silent. After a long time, Chu Yang asked, what if I die? Bai Yin said lightly, if you don't exist anymore and your divine soul disappears, the sword spirit will also scatter. After 10,000 years of nourishment, the little phoenix can reappear and grow again. That's all. Chu Yang smiled faintly. That's all. This is a cycle. The previous 8 masters of Calamity Sword all chose this, didn't they? They also met you and encountered a great opportunity. Bai Yin said, your problem is still not important. All of this is understandable. You and your brothers are destined to have a rough life. The sooner you have enough strength, the sooner you can protect yourself. Isn't it worth sacrificing an unrelated sword spirit to ensure the absolute safety of your brothers and all your family members? Chu Yang turned to look at the sword spirit. The sword spirit's face was blank. At this moment, the sword spirit had recovered all of his memories. He had sacrificed himself like this the previous 8 times. Chu Yang was naturally a person who valued friendship and righteousness. But how many of the previous 8 masters of Calamity Sword didn't value friendship and righteousness? Which one of them wasn't an extraordinary man? But after a fierce battle of thoughts, he was still abandoned. The sword spirit didn't have much resentment in his heart. He only felt a little sad and desolate. He was just a spirit after all. Sacrificing a sword spirit who couldn't see the light of day for his brothers and family members was a reasonable choice. He could only blame himself for being a spirit, especially when he was a spirit who couldn't resist his master. In essence, he was a slave whose life and death were controlled by his master. Who would care about the life and death of a slave? Chu Yang lowered his head and didn't say anything. Bai Yin wasn't in a hurry. He didn't urge him to make a choice. After a long time, Chu Yang said softly, "I have always cherished the lives of my family members." Bai Yin's eyes flickered. The sword spirit's face had already calmed down. Chapter 2063. The sword spirit's face was expressionless, and his eyes were expressionless. He was no longer worried, afraid, or in despair. Anyway, he was destined to be abandoned. What was the use of worrying? Accept your fate. You've gone through such a process many times. You've experienced too much loneliness, and you've gradually gotten used to it. But after being scattered this time, I'm afraid that I won't have a complete consciousness in this lifetime. Chu Yang continued in a heavy tone, "I also cherish the lives of my brothers." He paused for a moment and then said, "I cherish the lives of my lovers even more. And the lives of my friends. I also cherish them." Chu Yang slowly raised his head and said, "For these people, I can pay any price. If you used these to threaten me to kneel just now, I would have done so. The sword spirit is just a soul. I know this. I know it better than anyone else. He exists because of this sword. I also know this. To me, he has no ability to resist. I also know this." Chu Yang's voice became low. The sword spirit's expression showed some confusion. "But I've never treated the sword spirit as an empty soul. I've also never treated him as a slave without any ability to resist. My brothers can risk their lives for me, and I can also sacrifice my life for my brothers." Chu Yang said softly, "But before this, the sword spirit has saved my life countless times. He's my friend. In the past, in the present, in the future, and forever. My brothers outside are brothers, and my friends inside are also friends." Chu Yang suddenly raised his head, and his eyes revealed a threatening light. He said, "If I sacrifice the sword spirit, I can easily obtain invincible strength. This choice is very easy. I can sacrifice the sword spirit, but I definitely won't sacrifice my friends. I may still have invincible strength in the future, but if I lose this friend, I won't have another one." Chu Yang said seriously, "I'm not the previous 8 masters of the Calamity Sword. So, I won't let the sword spirit be the sword soul. Even if I don't have a sword soul forever, I'm still Chu Yang." The more Chu Yang spoke, the clearer and more resolute his voice became. "Also, I once promised my friend that if he can fully condense his physical body one day, we will fight side by side and stand openly under the blue sky and white clouds." When he said this, the sword spirit trembled all over. However, it was not out of fear, but out of excitement. His body flickered with red light, and an extremely intense emotion seemed to be burning within him. "Is this your choice?" Bai Yin's eyes flashed with an indescribable light. "Is this your choice?" Chu Yang smiled. "Yes. You don't regret it?" "There's no medicine for regret in this world." Bai Yin pressed. "I, Chu Yang, have never regretted my actions." Chu Yang raised his sword-like eyebrows. The white shadow laughed. "Good." Suddenly, he laughed loudly and rose from the ground. He actually left just like that. In that instant, he had already disappeared without a trace. All of this was like a dream. Only the white shadow's voice came from afar. "Not bad, not bad. I hope you will never regret the decision you made today. I will watch you walk down this path." Chu Yang silently said in his heart, "I will never regret it. For my friend, how can I regret it?" Bai Yin laughed and said, "Finally, I'll tell you something good. In the tribulation space, I have a reward for you. But, you need to reach a certain level before you can take it out and use it. Little one, remember to cultivate well. Don't forget that you still have a battle with me. Chu Yang's heart sank. He said, even if you forget that battle, I will still stand opposite you. I will show you my sword. I will show you my moves. Bai Yin laughed loudly, which shook Chu Yang's heart. His last words came from afar. Next time you see me, call me Big Brother June. Chu Yang smiled. It won't be too late to call you Big Brother after I defeat you. The white shadow's voice finally disappeared in a burst of arrogant laughter, and there was no response from him anymore. Chu Yang opened his eyes and saw the sword spirit standing in front of him. The sword spirit's face was full of excitement, and his whole body was trembling. He almost couldn't speak. Chu Yang laughed and patted him on the shoulder. Don't be so touched. I'm not that great. I don't want you to be fooled by me. In fact, I was just coaxing him to leave. It was more important to tell that white shadow to get lost. Facing him was too much pressure. In fact, my real reason is, I want to have a real sword spirit. I want to forge a real sword spirit myself. I want to see what the so-called killing intent of my sword spirit, the invincible sword, looks like. He smiled. Since someone can do it, I believe that I can do it too. Moreover, I need my own Tao, my own Tao. He suddenly smiled curiously and said, there is one more thing. I really want to see if you will be as gorgeous as the legends say when you become a phoenix. Then he laughed. The sword spirit almost choked. He nodded repeatedly. In fact, how could he not know this? Chu Yang said this to comfort himself. He didn't want to take this matter to heart, because, under the deterrence of the white shadow, no one could say anything that went against their heart. This was a spiritual aura that was specially set up by a powerful person. No one could avoid it. In that kind of situation, as long as one said something, it would be the truest reflection of one's heart. There was absolutely no possibility of lying. It was only in this way that Chu Yang's words were truly precious. The previous few Tribulation Sword Masters had pondered in such a situation. They felt that they were not as important as their brothers and relatives. Therefore, they chose to turn themselves into sword spirits to increase their strength. Then, they would be invincible in the world. From now on, the sword spirit will only be loyal to the sword master. I have no regrets. The sword spirit stood in front of Chu Yang solemnly and slowly bent down seriously. At this moment, Shui Leihan's figure flashed across the sword spirit's heart. But the sword spirit didn't hesitate at all. He chose Chu Yang because Chu Yang was the sword spirit's master. More importantly, Chu Yang was his friend. Here there was respect. The sword master said that I'm his friend. Everyone else was using me. Everyone else was trying to destroy me. Only Lord Chu Yang let me go and saved me. He even gave me unlimited hope and a future. Although I'm just a spirit, I know who's good to me and who's bad to me. I'm considerate. The most important thing is that I have a friend. I have a friend, Chu Yang. The sword spirit was so excited that he almost couldn't control himself. But he saw Chu Yang touch his nose and ask himself, oh right, I've always wondered. Are you a male? Or a female? Do you have that thing? Get lost. The sword spirit, who was feeling touched, was fuming with anger. I'm the same as you. I'm a male. Then he suddenly lowered his head. Actually, I don't have that thing now. My real gender can only be revealed after my godly spirit is completely condensed and I find a suitable host. But my real body is indeed, I understand. When your godly spirit is fully condensed, I'll find you a female phoenix to satisfy you. Chu Yang touched his chin. If that's the case, I might as well die. You bastard. The sword spirit was furious. He didn't care whether he was a master or a friend. Haha. Chu Yang laughed. On a distant mountain top. The bet is over. The result is obvious. You've lost again. The white-robed man laughed evilly. So what if I lost? I'm more willing to accept this result than to win. The black-robed man snorted and said, you've given him all the bets, right? What do you mean? Am I the kind of person who plays tricks behind the scenes? The white-robed man felt wronged and grimaced. Aren't you? The black-robed man rolled his eyes. Am I? Aren't you? Ha, The two of them laughed at each other. This time, I fulfilled my wish. The white-robed man smiled easily. Chu Yang's godly spirit is already qualified. His temperament is also qualified. It's not easy. It's really not easy. The black-robed man sighed, which was a rare sight. Although he's qualified, but there are also quite a number of fully qualified people who die prematurely, the white-robed man shrugged. Their deaths have nothing to do with us. That's true, but what you said is also. Forget it. Let's leave it to fate. The black-robed man turned his head and took a look. There was a fluctuation in the air. The white-robed man shook his head and said speechlessly, "Remember not to interfere. I know better than you." The black-robed man was a little angry. "I'm just looking, just looking." "Looking? You're really boring." The white-robed man rolled his eyes. "I can't be bothered to be angry with you. You can do whatever you want. Let's go. I promised my wives that I'll bring them to my hometown to play." The white-robed man scratched his head. "How many years has it been? Maybe we'll have to go back in time again." The black-robed man said mercilessly, "Those wives of yours don't seem to be simple. Do you need to do it yourself?" The white-robed man snorted. "I seem to remember that in my hometown, someone was beaten to the point of running away in a sorry state." The black-robed man was furious. "Bullshit your mother. I was shifting my strategy at that time. If I meet that guy from back then again, I'll definitely beat him until he looks for his teeth all over the floor." The white-robed man shrugged his shoulders and mocked. "Yeah, if you can't beat him until he looks for his teeth all over the floor, you'll shift your strategy again, right?" The black-robed man was furious. "Why do I find you so unpleasant? You keep provoking me. Do you want to fight?" I don't dare. I'm too scared of you." The white-robed man said lightly, "Don't tell me you want to look for your teeth here first. You know my place is the most spotless. If it's contaminated by your teeth, it's really—" The black-robed man rushed over with a punch. The white-robed man blocked it, and the two of them flew into the sky with a swoosh. Just like back then, one black and one white opposed each other. "Come, let's fight." Chapter 2064. Ayaya. Boss. GMO wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He said miserably, "Boss, why did you improve so much? You tricked me." What? I tricked you? What do you mean? What's going on?" Chu Yang asked curiously. The brothers naturally understood. Their laughter shook the heavens, but no one explained. Mo Qingwu moved closer to Chu Yang's ear and giggled as she recounted the entire process of the bet. Chu Yang was stunned in an instant. Then, when he saw GMO's expression, he couldn't help but laugh. "GMO, you must accept your loss. Now, you can honor your bet." Mo Tianji said emotionlessly. "I can compensate you with 10 souls of purple crystal and cancel the bet." GMO said weakly. "Sure, there's no problem with such great benefits. You can cancel the bet if you honor it. Hand it over." Mo Tianji was very straightforward and magnanimous. "I'll owe it to you first, wait for me." GMO pleaded. "That won't do. I hope to see enough souls of the purple crystal or to hear that sentence." Mo Tianji rejected flatly without the slightest hesitation. "Second brother Mo, you're my brother, my good brother." At this moment, GMO was like a coquettish puppy wagging its tail, holding Mo Tianji's sleeve and begging. Mo Tianji's status was gradually rising, and he was advancing like an elder. Mo Tianji was impartial and tried to break free from someone. "If you're a man, you must accept your loss. If you can't afford to lose, don't play." Everyone jeered. To someone who had won against everyone but lost to Mo Tianji, they naturally had to hit him when he was down. "GMO, you must honor the bet. The bet just now was witnessed by heaven and earth. You're not a man if you don't keep your word. Are you still a man?" "Isn't it just a sentence? It's just lips opening and closing. Do you have to be so evasive? Hurry up, don't waste everyone's time." "Hurry up." GMO was stunned for a moment. Then he suddenly gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. He said indignantly, "I finally understand. You guys are a bunch of heartless and inhumane people. Isn't it just a sentence? I'll admit it. Emotianji slowly said, Stop. Don't try to confuse the public. That's not just a sentence. Pay attention. You have to say this sentence every time you speak. Everyone here is a witness and a supervisor. GMO shouted hysterically, Good. Then, everyone quieted down. Chu Yang took out his water skin to drink water. Then he asked Emo Qingwu, What is it? It seemed that Emo Qingwu had said everything just now, but she had left out the part about the bet. GMO is a stupid bird. Second Master Ji had already called out with a heroic spirit. It happened to coincide with Emo Qingwu's reply in a low voice. GMO is a stupid bird. Second Master Ji said passionately, Is this good enough? Fifth. Minister Chu spat out a mouthful of water, and it happened to spray onto Emo Qingwu's pretty face. The little girl was talking to him with her head raised, and her face was immediately washed clean. She glared at him with extreme anger. Cough, cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. Sorry. Cough, cough. Chu Yang kept coughing as he hurriedly apologized. On the other side, it was already a sea of joy. The brothers wanted to see the world in chaos. They all scrambled to talk to GMO. GMO, look at Luo Kadi now. GMO is a stupid bird. GMO said, What's wrong with Luo Kadi? GMO, don't be too sad. You'll get used to it. You know, everyone knows that Emo Tianji is really a good-for-nothing. Ao Xie Yun smiled evilly. GMO is a stupid bird. GMO gritted his teeth and said, Yes, Emo Tianji is indeed a good-for-nothing. You are also a good-for-nothing. GMO is a stupid bird. Since he had already said it, Second Master Ji might as well go with the flow. The more he said it, the smoother it got. He gritted his teeth and thought, I'll change my name to GMO in the next moment. I won't be called GMO anymore. Chu Yang almost couldn't breathe. He walked to GMO and patted him on the shoulder. GMO, why are you? GMO is a stupid bird. Second Master Ji said reflexively, What's the matter, boss? The corners of Chu Yang's mouth spasmed for a while. I say, why are you so stupid? You're even stupider than Wushang. You can't take out the souls of purple crystal to pay for the bet, but why don't you borrow them from me? I have plenty of them here. Not to mention 10, I have even 20. Huh? GMO stared at Chu Yang with wide eyes. His face was full of disbelief and speechlessness. What's the big deal? Chu Yang casually grabbed a handful of souls of purple crystal from the tribulation space. They shone in the air. There were more than 20 of them. Don't you have a lot of them? Do you have to go to that extent? Ah! GMO screamed. Oh my God! Oh my God! At the side, the brothers were already laughing so hard that they fell over. GMO suddenly snatched the souls of purple crystal from Chu Yang's hands. He rushed to Emo Tianji's side and counted 10 of them. Here's your bet. 10 souls of purple crystal. This is enough, right? You don't have to make things difficult for me anymore. Emo Tianji took them calmly. His eyes narrowed into a smile as he said, That's enough. The gambling debt is settled. We don't owe each other anything. GMO gritted his teeth. That's not right. I said that several times just now. You should also say Emo Tianji is a fool several times now. Emo Tianji glared at him and said, What did you say? Do you mean that you still want to continue? Sure, I'll return these souls of purple crystal to you. GMO was instantly stunned. He murmured, No, I didn't mean it that way. Emo Tianji chuckled. If you didn't mean it that way, then what did you mean? I know that you're indignant, but as the banker, is there such a rule in the gambling agreement that you made? The brothers said in unison, No. Definitely not, Look, everyone here is a witness. Emo Tianji spread out his hands. Everyone agrees that there isn't such a rule, so GMO was completely dumbfounded. He didn't dare to make another sound. He was even afraid that Emo Tianji wouldn't want the souls of purple crystal. If that happened, he would have to continue saying that and that. He secretly decided that from now on he wouldn't speak carelessly and make decisions carelessly. The brothers chatted and laughed. In order to celebrate everyone's great improvement in strength, they decided to hold a grand barbecue event in the elven forest. Everyone was in high spirits. Only GMO was like a frosted cigar, or like a pitiful little girl who had been tortured by 20 extraterrestrial demons. There was no need to mention the resentment and grievance he felt. How sad. How miserable. How tragic. Everyone was busy. While they were busy, Chu Yang quietly pulled Mo Tianji to one side. Tianji, this joke seems a little too much. Chu Yang was a little unhappy. Brothers could joke around, but if it went too far, it would hurt others. Hurting others would hurt feelings even more. Once there was a crack in a relationship, it was very difficult to mend it. It did go a little too far. Mo Tianji nodded and admitted, but I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose. But Chu Yang asked. Regarding Mo Tianji's answer, Chu Yang felt that it was unexpected but reasonable. Who was Mo Tianji? The master of calculation and manipulation. The master of tribulations. There were several wise men in the world. How could he ignore reason, kill them all, and target his own brother without leaving any leeway? Sure enough, there was another reason. GMO really talks too much. His temper is also not good. Moreover, he is the kind that offends people easily. I want to change this bad habit of his. Of course, to treat a serious illness, I have to use strong medicine. Mo Tianji said lightly, no matter what he says in our brother's territory, we can take responsibility for it. In the heavenly layer, with our current strength, we don't need to be afraid of anyone. Naturally, we don't need to be afraid of GMOs saying the wrong things and offending people. However, we will charge into the heavenly layer in the future. That is a completely unfamiliar world. It is a world with a higher cultivation level. In that place, perhaps just one sentence can cause a disaster. If that time really comes, no matter whether we have the ability to deal with it or not, it will definitely not be a good thing. Also, if we are together, we can take responsibility for him. If we are separated, what will happen? And most importantly, GMO positions himself as the joker of our brothers. This won't do. He is our brother. He can't be a clown. Mo Tianji said, in addition, he relies too much on our judgment. This is of course the most precious thing. If we are always together, it is undoubtedly the best for him. But if we are separated one day, he will be at a loss. This will undoubtedly harm his entire life. If this temper can't be changed, then when we charge into the heavenly layer in the future, he can only be with you and me. Or he can't be separated from the other brothers because he needs someone to look after him. Mo Tianji said, if things really develop to this point, then it's really no small matter. What I did this time has indeed hurt his self-esteem a little, but I think it's worth it. As long as he can change, everything is worth it. Let me be the bad guy. Even if he hates me for a lifetime, it is still better than losing his life. Mo Tianji said lightly. Chu Yang sighed. Yes, Mo Tianji was right. As the cultivation of the brothers increased by leaps and bounds, everyone already felt that their days in the heavenly layer were not long. Once the sky collapsed and the void shattered, it would be time to separate. Because everyone had their own circumstances. It was absolutely impossible for the brothers to go up together and stay together. They would be scattered all over the world. If they were not careful, this separation might be forever. And GMO's carefree and unscrupulous temper was really worrying. Mo Tianji also felt this point. That was why he specially targeted GMO with special training. He wanted him to change these bad habits, so that he would not be at a disadvantage when he went up. Chapter 2065. The experts of the Heavenly Imperial Court were incomparable to those of the Heavenly Continent. After being separated, they were even more helpless. Not to mention a look was enough to make others feel murderous, leading to a battle of life and death. The two of them talked as they walked. At this time, they had already reached a secluded corner. In the distance, when the brothers saw the two of them talking, they tactfully did not disturb them. Instead, they lowered their chatter and laughter for fear of disturbing these two big shots. What you said naturally makes sense, but I still feel that some things should be handled more gently. Chu Yang said softly, brothers are different from subordinates. In this world, brothers are hard to come by. Brothers are different from subordinates. Mo Tianji's eyes lit up. He said, I understand. This time, the strength of the brothers has increased greatly. Tianji, do you have any plans for the future? Chu Yang asked. Plans for the future? Mo Tianji pondered and said, how far has the Calamity Sword reached? Chu Yang scratched his head. It should be at the peak for now. It's completely different from those so-called legends. It's completely different. I'm confident that I can surpass them by a lot. Mo Tianji's eyes lit up, just as I expected. What are the differences? Why are you so confident? Chu Yang said, speaking of which, this matter is very strange. Not to mention the choice of the sword's soul. Just the kidnapping is very different from before. There were many legends before that the Brotherhood of the Calamity Sword could move heaven and earth. The Calamity Sword clan intimidates the world. There was also a legend that the Calamity Sword clan did not have the same surname. In other words, the Calamity Sword clan did not have a woman. Chu Yang said with some confusion, but this time, the world has been turned upside down. It completely overturned many of the precedents. The last Calamity Sword clan, all the signs point to Jianghu. What's going on? Mo Tianji smiled confidently. You're here because of this? Chu Yang said, this is my biggest doubt. Shouldn't I be puzzled? Mo Tianji laughed out loud. What are you laughing at? What's so funny? Chu Yang was a little depressed. He was really stunned by Mo Tianji's laughter. What are you laughing at? I'm just laughing at you. You're quite smart. But why do you like to go to a dead end? Mo Tianji smiled for a while and said, don't you know that what I'm practicing now is the world-controlling divine technique? Moreover, we've mentioned before that this world-controlling divine technique, the original senior who had it had only scratched the surface. Logically speaking, people with especially good brains have relatively poor hands-on skills. However, that convention has been broken by me. My current cultivation is already 10 times that of that senior. Mo Tianji insipidly said, but, the more I study, the more I feel that this divine technique is as vast as the ocean. However, this divine technique requires one to dabble in many aspects and master them through a comprehensive study. Then one must walk their own path based on their own understanding. Perhaps, it is only suitable for people like me to practice. Chu Yang nodded and said, this is not bad. It had to be said that like people, like birds, like birds. Similarly, like people, like martial arts. Mo Tianji's world-controlling divine technique had once asked Chu Yang to help him study it when he was at his greatest bottleneck. In the end, Chu Yang had only looked at it for a short while before he had a headache. He had almost lost his mind. It wasn't that the cultivation method was difficult to practice, but the knowledge required was too diverse, and it gave him a headache. Chu Yang had only studied it for a total of 3 days before he fled. He did not dare to act rashly again. However, Mo Tianji had relied on his own abilities to forcefully guide him. He had opened up a new path and walked out from it. Currently, I have already reached the peak of the second level of world-controlling divine technique. Mo Tianji insipidly said, in the general principles of the second level, there is a sentence. Out of the 50 great Taos, for are given by the heavens. If one escapes, there will be a myriad of changes. Chu Yang silently nodded. There is another sentence. Everyone has an end, and numbers have an end. The end of numbers is. Mo Tianji smiled and said, but how many people are there in the world? How can there be an end? Therefore, the end of numbers is to say that it is the largest number. Chu Yang nodded again. At this moment he seemed to be a little confused, but also a little enlightened. But how could it be related to the Calamity Sword? You are the master of the Calamity Sword. You are the first master of the Calamity Sword. In other words, you have already gone to the extreme. Mo Tianji insipidly said, There is no path to the extreme. If there is a path, it will be a variable. Out of the 50 great Daos, for given by the heavens, the escaped one is the variable. And you are the variable of the calamity sword. Mo Tianji insipidly said, don't have any doubts. In fact, from the beginning, I have been divining your fate and everyone's fate. The conclusion is that it is a mess. Everything in the world has its own path to follow. Whether it is the stars, the sun, the moon, or even the gods and saints, they all have their own paths to follow. But you do not. Therefore, I boldly speculate that you are very likely to be the so-called escaped one in the land of heaven. The biggest variable in the world. You are the biggest variable. You can definitely change a lot. Even if the entire world is completely changed and overturned, I will not be surprised. It is because you are the biggest variable that we will walk together with you. Beside you, we will all return to the chaos and become completely unpredictable. Our path will return to the same place as you. It is also a variable. It is a place without limits. Mo Tianji said, speaking of which, it is more or less a little complicated. However, it can already be said that the fate of the calamity sword this time is very different. It will definitely be different. If it is the same as the previous few times, then your fate will be the same as the previous 8 masters of the calamity sword. As for me, Duxing and the others, wouldn't we also have to face the extraterrestrial demons through that inhumane channel? In fact, you, the biggest variable, have already eliminated this possibility from the beginning. Therefore, from then on, our path was already different from the previous calamity swords. Why can't there be people with the same surname in the calamity sword? Mo Tianji said, regarding this, I think it is probably because after the previous masters of the calamity sword and the calamity sword united the world, the calamity sword had to leave. However, perhaps because of the compensation from the heavenly Tao, it gave his bloodline a chance to reproduce for 10,000 years. Therefore, there are big clans. Since it is a big clan, there must not be people with the same surname. If there are people with the same surname, there can only be 8 or 7 of them. Anyway, it will not be big. As for why the calamity sword cannot have a female, it is because, in this world, men are always superior to women. Under normal circumstances, the bloodline of the descendants will be dominated by the male surname. Therefore, by the same logic, for the sake of the word big, there cannot be a female calamity sword. Of course, ever since I found out about this, I have another bold guess. Mo Tianji said, that is, since the ancient times, there has been a star array. That is the star array. This array takes unlimited fate and gathers the god of death from all sides. This is a star array and the number 1 fate-killing array in the world. And the ultimate goal of the calamity sword is to exterminate the heavenly demons. Therefore, I have a bold guess. The calamity sword of each generation is filled with the heaven calamity sword. Together with us, it is the god of death from all sides and the 10 sides killing array are formed. Why can't there be a female calamity sword? There is another question. That is, even if the previous master of the calamity sword has died, where did the family members of the previous master of the calamity sword go? With the legend of the master of the calamity sword, their female friends must not be ordinary people. Mo Tianji's expression was calm. All the information only says that the immediate family members of the master of the calamity sword have mysteriously disappeared. There has never been any record of their deaths. If that is the case, where did the immediate family members go? Maybe 1 or 2 families are disheartened and live in seclusion in the mountains and forests, never coming out. But it is impossible for all the descendants of the master of the calamity sword to be like this. Therefore, I have a bold guess. These people have been moved away. They are not dead. At least, they did not die in an accident. Chu Yang was shocked. Mo Tianji's conjecture had shaken his heart. However, Mo Tianji did not give him a chance to speak. He continued, if my guess is correct, I have another bold question. Did the previous master of the calamity sword really die? Since the heavens have arranged such an exquisite killing array and such a marvelous passage, then, Why are they so heartless to heroes like the master of the Calamity Sword? This does not seem to fit the meaning of the heavenly law. The heavenly law is fair. If this is really the case, where is the justice? Emotionji continued, therefore I have a bold guess. The previous master of the Calamity Sword may not have died. In our generation, a woman unexpectedly appeared in the land of Calamity. She has the same surname as another Calamity Sword and is the female friend of the current master of the Calamity Sword. Why is this so? Is Immortal not qualified? Why does it have to be Jianghu? Therefore, I have a conclusion. From our generation, the mission of the Calamity Sword will come to an end. The final variable also includes the mission to completely stop the future. Everything will end here. Draw an end. Another point is that the previous Calamity Sword cannot have a woman. They cannot have the same surname. For the sake of the 10,000 years of fate in the heavenly layer, the continuation of the bloodline. However, in our generation, do we still need to build a big clan in this heavenly layer? Emotionji smiled disdainfully, since we've already come this far? How can we be satisfied with just establishing a so-called clan in this heavenly layer continent? Will we be satisfied? If we really want to build a clan, we have to at least reach the heavenly layer imperial court. After we become the supreme existence in that domain, we will consider building our own clan and establishing our name. Since we have confirmed that we will not build a big clan here, what does it matter if there are any variables in the future? Today's fourth update, supplementary chapter. Chapter 2066. Chu Yang was silent for a while before he gave a conclusion. He said in a low voice, "He will definitely come." Emotionji nodded. He wanted to say something but stopped. Chu Yang raised his head and said softly, "I think Le will come too." Emotionji suddenly turned his head and looked outside. He sighed and said, "The aura today is really terrifying." A hint of panic flashed through his eyes. Emotionji was extremely intelligent, but he couldn't understand the meaning behind Chu Yang's words at this moment. He only felt that his heart was in a mess at this moment. With Emotionji's current cultivation and the nature of the master of calculation and manipulation, how could he say such an unwise thing if it didn't really tug at his heartstrings? The aura today was undoubtedly terrifying. If it were an ordinary person, it wouldn't be surprising if they were scared to death. But how could it shake Emotionji's mind? Only a special person would be able to make a wise man of his generation so absent-minded. Chu Yang fixed his gaze on Emotionji for a moment. Then he changed the topic, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally. Unfortunately, Senior Ning seems to be too happy to return to the lower three heavens. If we have his help in the battle, it may be a little easier. Emotionji quickly calmed down. He smiled and said, "This battle is destined to be ours." Chu Yang nodded. "Are you ready on your side?" Emotionji nodded. "Let's begin." Chu Yang let out a long breath. Emotionji nodded heavily and clapped his hands. Clap, clap. Gu Du Xing and the rest quickly gathered around. Everyone's eyes were shining. "Are we going to start?" Emotionji smiled lightly. The legend of tribulation has a long history. When tribulation and tribulation unite, they will be invincible. Gu Du Xing and the rest will each go one way. Dong Wushang and Immortal will go one way. The 8 of you will spread out in all directions. Everything will go according to the plan last night. Everyone can do whatever they want. The only thing you need to pay attention to is your own safety. Your safety is the most important thing. You must return safely. Got it. Understood. As for me and Big Brother, we will stay in the center and wait for your news. A cold light flashed through Emotionji's gentle and elegant eyes. His voice became more and more indifferent. If there is any obstruction, kill without mercy. Everyone's eyes were suddenly filled with killing intent. At this moment, the murderous intent of many peak powerhouses gathered together. It was truly domineering and dominating. Emotionji turned his head to look at Jianghu. His voice became gentle as he said, "Little sister." Emo Qingwu raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "Second brother, don't worry. I have never danced in my life, so from now on, I will dance with him." The corner of Emo Tianji's mouth twitched as he said, "All right. Let me remind you one last time. Be careful and don't force yourself." Chu Yang didn't speak. He gazed deeply at Emo Qingwu, gazing at his beloved. Emo Qingwu's eyes were like water as she gazed at him with rippling eyes. She also didn't say a word. Neither of them spoke again. But Mao's expression had already explained everything. In Jianghu, some things are destined to be unavoidable, and some things must be done. Take care. I will. You? Take care of yourself. A chuckle like a fairy's voice rose in spirals, blowing away the melancholy here. Red clothes flashed, and in an instant, a red shadow suddenly swept out like lightning. In a flash, it was already 1,000 feet away. Within 1,000 feet of space, it was full of red shadows, graceful and graceful. It was as if a fairy had suddenly revealed her stunning and beautiful dance in this noisy world. The red shadow was still flashing in midair, but Emo Qingwu's graceful figure had already disappeared in the northeast direction. From now on, I don't want to be protected by your wings anymore. I want to use my strength to fight side by side with you, to reach the peak. I know that what you need is not a flower in a greenhouse, or just a vase. You will definitely experience cold knives and frost in your life, brave ambushes from all sides, and countless dangers accompany you. Then I will go forward courageously, stepping all the way. Even if there is a storm of blood, I will accompany you. One day, look at me, I will dance for you. Emo Qingwu was the youngest in Chu Yang's group. She had never gone out alone to carry out any mission before. Everyone took care of her, pitied her, and loved her. They never let her get involved in any dirty, messy, or dangerous matters. But this time, in this world of chaos, ambushes and crises from all sides, the first one to rush out and shoulder the responsibility was Emo Qingwu. I will help you shoulder all the difficulties and dangers. Good. Delightful. Gu Duxing let out a long howl and rose up as well. He brought along an incomparably dazzling sword light that was mixed with his loftiness as he charged towards the north like a bolt of lightning. Both of us are going too. Dong Wushang stood up and laughed. Even though he spoke completely unconsciously, there was still a heroic spirit and majestic aura spontaneously arising from his words. Emo stood up gracefully. Both of them were dressed in black and stood side by side. The next moment, Dong Wushang's burly figure strode out. With every step he took, the ground seemed to tremble a little. He was just one person, but his aura was as if thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers were vowing to go to war together. Good spirit! What a man! Huang Xiaoyou's eyes revealed extreme fanaticism and envy. Man's fate was unpredictable. On this day when the tribulation and tribulation worked together for the first time, it was actually Huang Xiaoyou who was their witness. If Immortal was not included, Huang Xiaoyou was the only witness to the beginning of the tribulation's legend. Heaven made fools of people, nature made fools of people, and helplessness made fools of people. Dong Wushang was a peerless mighty warrior in the world. Huang Xiaoyou's eyes suddenly lit up and he instantly understood. What is a man? This is a real man. A real man, a real man. It seemed that in front of such a good man, he wasn't even worthy of carrying his shoes. Huang Xiaoyou, the super profligate who had been a profligate prodigal for half a generation, had never reflected on himself. But now, he lowered his head and started to reflect for the first time. Then, he started to think about his future path. Ao Xiun, you go to the east. I'll go to the west. Rui Badong let out a long roar like a phoenix. He shot out and bent his legs in the air. He opened his arms and bounced his legs. Suddenly, he spread his wings and glided away like a huge bird. His posture was extremely beautiful. Ao Xiun laughed out loud. This guy is trying so hard to portray the demeanor of a phoenix on a journey and the majesty of 100 birds descending upon the world. But he's actually acting like a crow flapping its wings. What a fucking shame. Forget it, let's broaden everyone's horizons. What's a dragon roaming the world? It's unparalleled. The brothers laughed. Ao Shiyun's bones made explosive sounds like beans being fried. With a loud and clear dragon roar, his body was really like an ancient dragon. He rushed out from the ground ferociously. Along the way, he was like a tornado that swept across the world, wreaking havoc and disappearing in the east. Xie Danqiong smiled and said, "According to what we said yesterday, I'll go to the south." He floated out elegantly with an almost natural elegance. Like a light cloud, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Damn it. All of them are walking so coquettishly and casually. Damn it, they've used up all the ways to be in the limelight. What about your second master Ji? How do you expect me to leave? GMO muttered angrily, "None of these bastards are good. I'll go to the southeast. Let's go." Suddenly, he looked up and shouted, "Dog ant? Dog ant! Damn dog ant!" With a whoosh, he disappeared without a trace. Awu, Luo Kadi howled like a wolf and disappeared without saying anything. In the blink of an eye, everyone disappeared from everyone's sight. In the sky, thousands of wind and clouds suddenly gathered. The wind and clouds surged as fast as lightning. Just like the tide of the martial world, the wind and clouds came and went from the sky to the earth. The wind and clouds danced. Seeing his brothers leaving one by one, Chu Yang only had a smile on his face. Like Mo Tianji, both of their faces were glowing. There was also some pride from the bottom of their hearts. In the turbulent times, my brothers and I were just like this. We didn't fear hardships and stepped forward bravely. We faced the bloody wind with a smile and looked down on the rain of blood with disdain. At this moment, even Chu Yang and Mo Tianji felt their blood boiling, let alone Huang Xiaoliu who was watching from the side. There's just one thing that I still don't understand. What does G Mo's dog ant mean? Isn't a dog's ant still a dog? Is he referring to a female dog? Mo Tianji smiled bitterly and shook his head, indicating that he also had to ask someone for advice one day. I deeply feel that. Chu Yang said deeply. He himself might not understand what it means. Maybe he thinks that it's more imposing to say it that way? Haha, I feel the same. Both of them laughed at the same time. Huang Xiaoliu looked at them dumbfounded. Is your purpose this time to mess up the Tianding Grand Meeting? Mess up the Tianding Grand Meeting? Oh no. Mo Tianji and Chu Yang looked at him strangely. Do you still think that there's a Tianding Grand Meeting now? There's no Tianding Grand Meeting. Since there's no Tianding Grand Meeting, how can there be any mess? How can there be no Tianding Grand Meeting? Huang Xiaoliu was dumbfounded. If there's no Tianding Grand Meeting, what's there? A battlefield. There's only a battlefield. Chu Yang's face revealed a sharp and lofty look, and he said slowly, and it's a super big battlefield that's never been seen before in history. The cruelty of this great battle would be unprecedented since ancient times. Even if it won't end in the future, it'll definitely be unprecedentedly tragic. This war, this battlefield, will determine the fate of the upper three heavens and the entire heavens. Mo Tianji smiled warmly. He spoke softly and elegantly. However, the words that came out of his mouth were like heavenly golden thunder that came crashing down from the sky. Will we conquer the world and rejoice? Or will we suffer a crushing defeat and withered bones and loyal souls? Everything will be settled after this battle. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Sigh, it doesn't feel good to owe a debt. Let me tell you some unfortunate news. When I went out for a haircut today, the hairdresser was chatting with someone while cutting my hair. Coincidentally, someone called me. I looked up. What? With a whoosh, I felt my scalp turn cold. Then, the hairdresser kept apologizing. When I looked in the mirror, what the hell? In the middle of my head, there was a white and shiny hairline. I collapsed on the spot. I'm not Ultraman. I had no choice but to get a crew cut. But that wasn't enough, so I just shaved it off. I'm really convinced. Don't call me Feng Ling anymore. For a short period of time, you can call me Master or Feng Ling Buddha. Chapter 2067. Another strange thing about this strange animal was that it wasn't confined in a cage. Instead, it was just lying on its side, lazily basking in the sun. There were no ropes or chains around its neck either. In other words, the harmless image of this guy was probably already deeply rooted in people's hearts. The truth was probably not far from this. Chu Yang walked up to it, squatted down and observed it carefully. When this strange animal saw that a human had arrived, it also opened its lazy eyes and looked at Chu Yang. Deep in its eyes, there was actually a trace of disdain and contempt. It was a kind of faint contempt. Although it was like wind passing by without a trace, it really existed. It was as if the gods of the heavens were looking down on mortals. They were not even in their eyes, they were looking down on them with contempt and disregard. Only when Chu Yang got closer did he realize that the fur all over this guy's body was almost purple. It actually faintly exuded a kind of aura. Sword spirit, take a closer look. Do you recognize what kind of spirit beast this is? The more Chu Yang looked, the stranger he felt. I really haven't seen it before. The sword spirit carefully identified for a moment and finally shook his head gloomily. Sword master, this doesn't seem to be a spirit beast. It's just an ordinary wild beast. Ordinary wild beast. Chu Yang was stunned. It can't be? Why would an ordinary wild beast be here? You must be mistaken. It doesn't make sense. That strange animal suddenly growled from its throat. It rolled its eyes and looked at Chu Yang. Then it rolled over and lay down on its back. It seemed that it had completely lost interest in a certain king of hell in front of it and was turning a blind eye to him. The next moment, it stretched out its front paw and scratched its belly contentedly. It seemed that this seemingly intentional and unintentional action had already exceeded the boundary of turning a blind eye. It directly treated Chu Yang in front of it as if he was air. This guy looked very sloppy, but the fur on its belly was actually snow white and spotless. It was really clean to the extreme. Seeing this, Chu Yang's eyes lit up again. There must be something strange about a strange species. Even if this guy in front of him was a real wild beast, it was still a strange wild beast. Then, Chu Yang put away the purple cloud tower and waved his hand to summon the steward here. Buddy, what kind of spirit beast is this? Chu Yang asked. The steward looked at Chu Yang with a funny expression and couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Guest, this is not a spirit beast. What a fucking joke." There was actually someone who had taken a fancy to this lazy guy who was just waiting to die. Something new had happened today. First, an animal that was rarely seen in 100 years was inexplicably agitated. Then, there was an idiot who mistook a wild beast for a spirit beast. He even seemed to have the intention to buy it. This was really something new. There were so many spirit beasts here, yet he didn't look at them. Instead, he took a fancy to an ordinary beast that didn't know how to do anything? If he didn't have too much money to burn, then he was a complete idiot. Did you think that choosing a spirit beast was like choosing a pet? You're saying that this isn't a spirit beast? Chu Yang frowned. Since it's not a spirit beast, why did you place it here? Guest, listen to me. Actually, I don't know the specific origin of this guy. But I heard from my seniors that this beast came to us on its own. It wasn't caught by the beast-catching team of our company. We don't know when exactly it came. It seemed to have appeared suddenly. Moreover, it has been very docile ever since it arrived here. It will eat if there is something to eat, and if there is nothing to eat, it will not eat. It has been lying here without moving, and it will not cause any trouble. Although its body is huge, it is very obedient. If it was not for the fact that it is completely harmless, do you think we would have placed it here without any restrictions? The steward rolled his eyes and said, "But, guest, in fact, this guy is really cute. If you want to buy it as a pet or something, it'll definitely be worth the money. It'll definitely be awe-inspiring when you take it out." It was rare that someone took a fancy to this guy that no one wanted even if it was given away for free. How could he not brag about it? If he could really sell it, he could even get some money back for the feed. There weren't many spendthrifts like this in this Heaven Imperial Court. Just based on this guy's size, I'm sure I can't be wrong. By the way, what species is this guy? A tiger? Or something else? This guy belongs to your shop. You must have some information about it, right? Chu Yang asked with great interest. I really don't know. In our Heaven Imperial Court, there's no record of such a strange animal. No one has ever seen it before. If you ask me, maybe it's some legendary rare beast? Seeing that this guy was really interested, the steward suddenly became spirited and quickly boasted about it. Finally, this foodie was going to be sold. According to the analysis of my seniors, this guy could also be a cross between a cat and a tiger. Speaking of this, the steward's mouth twitched. Chu Yang's eyes widened. What? A cross between a cat and a tiger? Your cat can be a cross between a cat and a tiger? Is it a cross between a cat and a tiger, or a tiger and a cat? Let's not talk about whether it's possible or not. Let's talk about the size first. A tiger's thing is bigger than a cat's, right? A cat's thing is not even as big as a toothpick to a tiger. How should I explain it? The steward was dumbfounded and sweated profusely. Didn't I just say something wrong? Do you have to be so agitated? I was talking about the animal, not you. What the steward didn't know was that behind him, the strange animal also propped up half of its body and glared fiercely at the steward's back. It opened its mouth and revealed its white fangs. Even the fur on its head stood up one by one, as if it was unable to restrain its anger. But then, it lowered its head and continued to scratch its stomach. All right, stop talking nonsense. Just tell me how much this beast is worth. Chu Yang asked. A certain king of hell wasn't stupid. He directly locked the price on the beast. You dare to sell a beast at the price of a spirit beast? If you really want to buy it, then... The steward's eyes turned. 50 purple soul coins. Seeing that Chu Yang was unhappy, he hurriedly said, Sir, 50 purple soul coins really isn't much. Such a big beast, even if you kill it and sell it, you can sell it for dozens of purple soul coins. After hearing this, the feline that looked like a cat and a tiger immediately stood up. All right. Chu Yang originally didn't plan to bargain. He happily paid. When he said, beast, just now, it was probably a psychological hint. He was afraid that the steward would be suspicious and cause unnecessary trouble. This fellow could ignore the aura of the purple firmament tower. What kind of beast could do that? Just this point alone made Chu Yang think that it was extraordinary. Not to mention 50 purple soul coins. Even if it was 50 purple soul coins, Chu Yang felt that it was worth it. But now, it was better to save as much as possible. If he really gave a high price, it might attract suspicion. The steward took the 50 purple soul coins and immediately smiled. Congratulations, sir. This beast is now yours. Although it's not a spirit beast, its appearance is definitely one of a kind in the Heaven Imperial Court. Just based on this point, even if you don't earn much, you'll still be awe-inspiring when you bring it out. Don't you think so? Chu Yang frowned and snorted. He said, what a load of nonsense. Would my eyesight be wrong? Alright, how do I take it away? Do I need to sign a divine contract? The steward's eyes widened to the extreme. If it weren't for his eye sockets, they might have shot out. He stuttered, Sir? Sir, you want to sign a divine contract with such a beast? Just now, he was praising this fellow to the heavens and earth. Perhaps it was a legendary, rare beast, but in the blink of an eye, it became a beast. The steward cursed endlessly in his heart. Could you be any more stupid? This fellow's brain must be damaged. There are so many spirit beasts out there, and you want to sign a contract with a normal beast? No attack, no defense, no speed, no strength. It's a complete product. This fellow's brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Nonsense. Chu Yang said matter-of-factly. If I don't sign a contract, how can I take it away? Is your brain damaged? Or was it kicked by a donkey? Why are you asking such stupid questions? How can your boss be at ease with you serving customers? The steward's face twisted. After a while he said, This? To sign a contract, you need to pay another 100 purple soul coins. Since you want to sign a contract with a piece of trash, why should I stop you? Anyway, I'm not the unlucky one. When the time comes, I'll know who's the one whose brain was damaged and who was kicked by a donkey. Chu Yang was very straightforward. Isn't it just 100 purple soul coins? Take it. Only then did the steward take out a piece of beast parchment. On it, The seal of the Heavenly Watchtower's Eastern Royal Heavenly Oath Division was impressively written. First, he burned incense and prayed. Then, he took out a bottle of strong alcohol and poured it on the oath. When Chu Yang was not far away from the strange animal, the oath was suddenly ignited. The oath paper instantly scattered into bits of starlight and flew towards the foreheads of Chu Yang and the beast. A trace of disdain flashed past the eyes of the fellow lying lazily on the ground. It didn't resist at all during the entire process. More accurately, it didn't even react at all. A certain king of hell, who was full of joy, felt that he had succeeded. He suddenly shouted loudly, and his divine sense, which had just recovered, was almost completely scattered at this moment. The steward, who was carrying out the oath, let out a miserable groan at the same time. He spat out a mouthful of blood and almost fainted. Chu Yang could clearly feel that the power of the oath was actually rebounded violently. For a moment, he was confused. But the steward said in a daze, "Why did this happen? What's going on?" The strange animal that looked like a cat and a tiger lazily rolled its eyes. It was still indifferent, as if this had nothing to do with it. Under Chu Yang's constant urging, the steward didn't believe in heresy and changed the oath paper again. This time, it was very straightforward. Chu Yang shouted and jumped up. He had a splitting headache, and it wasn't fake at all. The steward directly twitched and spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Then he fainted magnificently. The sword spirit, who was in the tribulation space, was dumbfounded by this unexpected situation. What exactly is going on? I just applied for a public WeChat account. Everyone, quickly take out your phones and add me. You can go to my Sino Weibo or Tencent Weibo to see the pinned Weibo. You can scan the QR code there. You can also directly search for the account, Z79062520030723. My nickname is Wind Conquers the World. You can find me. Come quickly, I'm waiting for you. Brothers and sisters, welcome to join. If there's any new news in the future, I'll share it with you at any time. It's my first time doing it, and I don't have any experience. Then I made the number too long. Sigh, it's a mistake. Please don't mind it. The point is, it's my first time doing it. Come on, brothers and sisters, what are you waiting for? Chapter 2068. At this moment, Chu Yang was already moving to the side, so he wouldn't affect the path of the Li clan's cavalry. However, this whip still flew over in such an unreasonable manner. Chu Yang was startled. He tilted his head to avoid it. The whip flew past his cheek. It was actually infused with a lot of primordial energy. This whip was actually meant to kill him. Chu Yang was instantly enraged. If it were an ordinary person, wouldn't he have been killed by this whip? Since he came to the Heavenly Imperial Court, his temper has been too good? Even Ah San and Ah Si dared to fight with him. And a thought flashed through Chu Yang's mind. He flipped his hand and accurately caught the tip of the horsewhip. Then he exerted force and shouted, "Get down!" The warrior's entire body flew up from the horse's back with a "woo" sound. However, he was involuntarily pulled over by Chu Yang's great strength. He flew over as if he was riding on a cloud. Seeing that he was flying in front of him, Chu Yang lifted his right foot and kicked him hard. This kick was aimed at his chest. The cavalry had just flown over, but he was kicked by this powerful kick. His whole body flew out in the opposite direction again. With a scream, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The sky above this dawn street was blood red. With a few cracking sounds, all the ribs in his chest were broken by Chu Yang's kick. With a puff sound, his whole body hit the wall on the opposite side of the street. He rolled over and fell down. When he landed, he was completely unconscious. Blood was bubbling out of his mouth. It was obvious that he was exhaling more than he was inhaling. He was not far from death. Chu Yang's angry kick was the first time he attacked in the Heavenly Imperial Court. He directly provoked the Li clan, one of the 3 big clans in Xixia City. One kick, one life. Stop. The Li clan's troops had already galloped a few dozen feet away when they heard the order. But a sudden change occurred. Everyone hurriedly reined in their horses and stood still. Then they turned around to look. Immediately, everyone looked angrily at the hesitant rider who was rolling on the ground. Then they looked at Chu Yang. Everyone's entire body was filled with hostility. Someone actually dared to beat up the Li clan's people in Wuxia City? And it seemed like he was beaten to death? And it was a knight of the Li family? Li Mingyue's personal bodyguard. This was an intolerable provocation. The eyes of the Li clan's people were burning with anger. Everyone spurred their horses to surround Chu Yang. The neighs of the strong horses could be heard from time to time. Their imposing manner was full of murderous intention. One of them jumped down from his horse and went to the knight who was kicked away. He stretched out his hand and shook his head with a sad expression. It's hopeless. Was there no hope? Everyone's uncontrollable anger burned even more fiercely at this moment. However, without waiting for them to ask, Chu Yang had already stepped forward. His face was full of anger and his voice was cold. A bunch of bastards. Was he blind? Don't you see anyone on the street? Are you guys courting death by riding so fast? A bunch of bastards. The tree wants to be still, but the wind won't stop. I want to be still, but the enemy won't rest. Since this matter is already destined to be unavoidable, the disaster has already begun. Then, let me take the initiative. Since he wanted to stir up trouble, he wasn't afraid of blowing things up. Words of Minister Chu. Since he had made up his mind to establish a foothold in this Purple Cloud City, it was better to clean up some of the problems as soon as possible. Today, this unexpected disaster happened. So, let's go with the flow and establish our prestige from this Li family. Chu Yang quickly sorted out his thoughts and decided to take the lead in launching an attack. Facing Chu Yang's overreaction, the Li clan's people were stunned. For a moment, they were at a loss and didn't know what to do. The reason for such a reaction was that the Li clan had been running rampant in Purple Cloud City for so many years. They had always been used to being the king of the city. Even the Jin clan, which was second to none in Purple Cloud City in terms of strength, wouldn't dare to treat the Li clan like this if it wasn't necessary. Today's events had truly exceeded the expectations of everyone in the Li clan. They had truly never seen such an audacious person. Not only did he kill someone, but he also wanted to denounce them with great fanfare? Could it be that he wanted to rebel? Such an arrogant tone, such a domineering manner. Since you dared to do this, you must pay the price for your actions. Li Mingyu looked at Chu Yang coldly. His eyes were like a poisonous snake. He didn't waste any more words and directly ordered, "Attack! No matter who he is or what his background is, I want him to die today." He urged his horse to take a step back and waved his hand, "Kill him!" Under normal circumstances, when an aristocratic family encountered such a situation, especially when encountering a strong situation like Chu Yang, they would first interrogate the other party and then start to fight. The so-called interrogation was actually a war of words. Before fighting, they would first vent their anger verbally. Then, it would be particularly refreshing to fight. This point, whether it was an expert or an ordinary person, would have such a subconscious habit. Unless it was a killer or an assassin. But now, both sides obviously didn't have such intentions. They directly skipped this step. Now, both sides were full of anger. There was no need for a war of words. They were already so angry that they were about to explode. Today, Chu Yang was truly walking innocently. He didn't deserve to suffer such a calamity. The anger in his heart couldn't be suppressed. As for the Li clan, they were even more furious. Our Li clan killing you is your bad luck. But you hitting our people is your fault. And you even killed our people. Not only did you kill them, you're still so arrogant. Don't tell me you don't deserve to die. When Li Mingyu's words left his mouth, there were already 4 or 5 people from the Li clan who immediately flew up from their horses. They fiercely pounced over. 2 of them even shook their hands in midair, revealing their weapons. The blade light flashed, chopping down diagonally. Looking at this momentum, if it really happened, Chu Yang would most likely be split into 4 pieces under that blade. Chu Yang's gaze was like ice and snow. With such a person, what was the point of talking reason? At this moment, he had already suppressed the killing intent of the poisonous sword revered martial artist from his previous life for a long time. Suddenly, it surged violently from the bottom of his heart. In an instant, the killing intent filled the sky. In his previous life, hadn't he always been bullied like this? He had always been in this kind of Jianghu, running around and struggling. In the end, he only had a tragic ending. In this life, he definitely could not repeat the experience of his previous life. To such a person, there was only one word: kill. The killing intent in Chu Yang's heart surged. With a long roar, his body soared into the air, welcoming the blade light. He didn't even use the calamity sword. He didn't even have that thought. Facing such a small fry who was at most a profound level or spirit level, there was no need to use the calamity sword. If he had to use the calamity sword to deal with such trash, it would only be a blasphemy to the calamity sword. Chu Yang's body floated, his entire body rising 5 feet in the air. His 2 feet gracefully parted in the air, as if a mountain was pressing down. The tips of his 2 feet simultaneously and accurately landed on the heads of the 2 people in front of him, stepping down with force. At the same time, Chu Yang's 2 hands opened, his sleeves shook, welcoming the 2 blades that came after him. Gotcha! 2 strange sounds rang out almost at the same time. The 2 people who were stepped on by Chu Yang wanted to use their strength to break free and counterattack, but they felt the pressure on their heads suddenly increase by 1,000 times, 10,000 times. In the next moment, 2 screams rang out at the same time. This was because their necks had suddenly disappeared. Chu Yang stepped on their heads, exerting force in an instant, and actually stomped their necks into their chests. Chu Yang's body fell with the momentum. The 2 people's sternum, shoulder bone, thoracic vertebrae and lumbar vertebrae were crushed at the same time, sinking in. The 2 heads had already fallen to their waists, but they still stubbornly stood upright. However, their thighs, pelvis and calves were also crushed by the immense force, and continued to sink into the ground. Finally, they were level with the ground. When Chu Yang landed back on the ground, the 2 people he stepped on had already become 2 piles of meat patties, complete and utter meat patties. There was a thin layer on the ground, and a large amount of blood sputtered continuously in all directions like a fountain. The walls on both sides of the ground, hundreds of feet away, looked as if countless plum blossoms had bloomed. Just like the painting skills of the master of painting who used his own blood as ink after using all the red paint, blood rained plum blossoms. The other 2 people who fell from above were horrified when they saw this scene. They were already scared out of their wits before the battle even started. Their 2 sabers chopped at Chu Yang's hands at the same time, but unexpectedly, there was a clang-clang sound of metal clashing. Chu Yang's hands seemed to be made of the hardest metal, and were actually invulnerable. As they fell, they clashed head-on without any tricks. After a few clangs, the sabers of the 2 people were already broken, and even the web between their thumb and forefinger was cracked. Their internal organs were injured, and blood flowed out of the corners of their mouths. They retreated in horror. Chu Yang snorted coldly, "You're already here, and you still want to retreat." His body flew up again, and his 2 hands, one on the left and one on the right, grabbed the collars of the 2 people, and slammed them together. Bang! The heads of the 2 people collided with a loud bang, like 2 ripe watermelons colliding with a huge force, and exploded at the same time. Thousands of peach blossoms bloomed, and it was actually a different kind of red. At the same time, a large amount of blood sputtered in all directions. Chu Yang retreated quickly. When he was 50 feet away, he stood still. His black clothes were as clean as if they had been washed, and there was not even a drop of blood on his body. He stood quietly, and did not even raise his head. He did not say a word. And on this street where dawn had just arrived, silence had also been restored, or perhaps it had passively entered a state of dead silence. Li Mingyue and the others looked at the scene in front of them, and all of them opened their mouths wide, but no sound came out. They looked at the mess of flesh and blood in front of them with horror, and the only feeling they had was that their hearts seemed to have stopped beating at this moment. The 4 people who were talking and laughing with them just now, and were full of vigor, had turned into 4 miserable corpses in the blink of an eye. It was too horrible to look at. What happened just now seemed to be a long story, but in fact, the whole process only happened in a flash. It was almost over after a move. But the most amazing thing was that Chu Yang's series of actions allowed them to see every part of it clearly and clearly. In such a fast-paced fight, there was actually a strange feeling of elegance and slowness. Li Mingyue suddenly raised his head and looked at the pool of blood in front of him and the black-clothed Chu Yang. It was as if he had seen a demon suddenly emerge from the ancient hell. At this moment, even the warhorses did not dare to make a sound. Chu Yang finally raised his head slowly. His eyes were extremely sharp as he looked at the remaining person in front of him, and he smiled cruelly, saying, "The road to hell is long, and the gate to hell is open. What are you waiting for? Don't delay the time and become a wandering ghost. It wouldn't be good. Set off at the end of the road. Forgive me for not seeing you off." A master at the peak of human level. At Li Mingyue's side, a bodyguard finally realized the truth in horror and subconsciously cried out. These people were all born and bred in the Heaven Imperial Court, and naturally, they were more clear about the characteristics of the stages than people like Chu Yang, who had ascended. Chu Yang had just moved his hand, and there was already an imperceptible aura around his body. This was the sign that he was about to break through the peak of human level and reach the earth level. When he reached the earth level, the aura around his body would transform into a light yellow color. When he reached the earth level, it would become a dark yellow color, and when he reached the earth level, it would become an extremely noble bright yellow color. These people would never have thought that they would inexplicably provoke a master at the peak of human level while galloping in the early hours of the morning, and this master's attack was so ruthless. For Wuxia City, which was located at the edge of the territory, this was really a big surprise. Even the powerful Li clan, which had dominated Wuxia City for so many years, together with the Jin clan and the Wu clan, did not have many masters at the peak of human level. Except for the two ancestors who were at the earth level, and a few masters at the human level, the rest were mostly warriors at the profound level or the spirit level. Peak of human level. Chu Yang sneered, "Good eyesight. Unfortunately, this eyesight can only be buried in the soil." Suddenly, he stretched out his body and rushed forward. With the rapid movement of his body, there was a sonic boom in the air, followed by a series of afterimages, and in an instant, he had already arrived in front of these people. "Stop." The knight with good eyesight only had time to say one word before he was slapped down from his horse by Chu Yang. Then, a series of punches and kicks were added. Chu Yang's killing intent had been aroused, and he could no longer control it. "Stop! Stop!" Li Mingyue shouted, with a face full of panic, and said in a shrill voice, "I am a direct descendant of the Li clan. If you dare to take another step forward, I will destroy your clan." How dare you, a mere Li clan, say such big words? Do you have the qualification? Do you have the ability? Chu Yang laughed loudly. Then he suddenly punched one of the guards and broke his sternum. Then he kicked the other guard into the air. It seemed that these two people were already dead. The sky was getting brighter, and at this moment, there were already pedestrians on the street. In the distance, some people stretched out their heads to look, but immediately shrank back. Then, they stretched out their heads to look again. Human curiosity was a matter of many things. The windows on both sides had already been opened at some point in time, forming a barely discernible line. Pairs of eyes were secretly peeking down. When everyone saw that it was the Li clan that was defeated, there was a kind of relief and resentment in almost everyone's eyes. The three big clans were entrenched in Purple Cloud City, and the sins they had committed in these years were already as heavy as a mountain. Seeing that the Li clan had finally met a tough opponent, it was really satisfying. This chapter is 4,000 words, to make up for yesterday's second update. It's not that I want to be brave, but this period of hot weather has made me a little absent-minded. In a few days, I am afraid that I will forget about owing a chapter. It's better to pay it off first. I'm going to lie down. Good night, everyone. Chapter 2069. Hua and the others, we still don't know where they are. We don't know if they were harmed or... Another person stammered. I don't care if they die. Fourth Master Hua was enraged. Fourth Master Hua's anger caused everyone to keep quiet out of fear. However, the heartlessness he displayed now made them feel even more disappointed. Hua and the others had always been loyal to the Hua clan, even going through fire and water for many years, giving their all. However, it was such people who, after going missing, only ended up with "I don't care if they die" from Fourth Master Hua's mouth. He was actually so heartless. If I also went missing or died, what would Fourth Master Hua say? With such a master, if I really died, how would my family be treated? Everyone felt sad, forcing themselves not to think any further. The atmosphere of a fox grieving for the death of a rabbit swept the entire place. Since things have already come to this, we can only immediately inform the clan and see if the old ancestor can personally appear. Only with him appearing will we have a chance to obtain the benefits first. Otherwise, Fourth Master Hua waved his hand impatiently, do it immediately. One person immediately turned and left. This matter was urgent and had to be reported immediately. Also, the way this secret was leaked is really strange. Perhaps it was that bastard Dong Lai who leaked it. It doesn't make sense that we would be exposed right after we told him about buying Infinite Boundless Mountain. This timing is really too coincidental. It must be him. Fourth Master Hua's eyes were malicious. Now that the clan is weak, we can't kill Dong Lai openly. However, I will definitely make him regret it for life. After pondering for a moment, he finally ordered decisively, the three of you, sneak into the Chu clan tonight and kill that divine Dr. Chu on the spot. Kill divine Dr. Chu. The three Hua clan experts looked at each other. This matter has nothing to do with that Chu Yang at all. At the end of the day, it was you who made use of him. Why do you want to kill him for no reason now? What kind of logic is this? What kind of person are we following? Nonsense. Fourth Master Hua said angrily, Dong Lai is suffering from an illness that only Chu Yang can treat. It is said that half a year is needed to treat him. Now, only a month has passed. He must not be cured yet. Dong Lai revealed our great secret, causing us to fail on the verge of success and our plan to fail. How can we let this go? However, Dong Lai is the city lord of Xixia City and is a member of the government. We have the heart but are powerless to do anything to him. But even if we can't kill Dong Lai, can't we kill Chu Yang? As long as I kill Chu Yang, that bastard Dong Lai will be sick for the rest of his life. Fourth Master Hua laughed coldly. The three of them suddenly understood. It turned out that they wanted to kill divine Dr. Chu just to prevent him from treating the city lord. What a ruthless person, what a vicious method. The three of them felt that it was a pity. Even if he couldn't recruit such a godly doctor for his own use, he should at least try to maintain a good relationship with him. After all, who wouldn't get stabbed in the Jianghu? As long as he was stabbed, how could he not seek medical treatment? The existence of divine Dr. Chu was definitely a great blessing for martial artists. Why would he kill such a godly doctor just to treat Dong Lai? That was a little too unreasonable. The three of them couldn't help but hesitate. What? Fourth Master Hua looked at the three of them coldly. You're not willing? Fourth Master, please reconsider. Reconsider my ass. Everything was destined to fail. Fourth Master Hua was already close to madness. Do you want to rebel? We don't dare. If you don't dare, then follow my orders. Tonight, I must see Chu Yang's head on my table. Fourth Master Hua roared. The three of you, go to the disciplinary hall to receive your punishment after you return home. You know clearly what kind of crime it is to disobey an order before a battle. Yes. The three of them looked at each other helplessly. In a place very far away, on a certain mountain, everyone was discussing the matter of the appearance of the evil spirit and the shattering of the soul-suppressing stone. This wasn't an ordinary place. It was the headquarters of the notorious Wild Wolf Bandits. This group of bandits came and went like the wind. Every single one of them was a powerful martial artist. Their whereabouts were also secretive. Even the government couldn't do anything to them. They had been encircled and suppressed several times, but they had always escaped unscathed. But for matters of the level of the soul-suppressing stone, They obviously didn't have the right to ask about it. In the end, they were just bandits. Amidst the clamor, Emotionji, who was dressed in white, had a gentle smile on his face as he slowly walked into a large hall. A ferocious-looking man stood up. Military advisor Mo, please sit. Let's discuss. Emotionji slowly sat down. What's the matter? Regarding the soul-suppressing stone, should we? Emotionji smiled and said quietly. The man on the other side nodded. Since that's the case, let's sweep that small town first. Military advisor Mo, this time, I'll snatch a few women to warm your bed. Ah, Emotionji smiled and nodded. Tonight let's get drunk. Good. The man laughed wildly. He raised his cup and drained it in one gulp. It was noisy and lively outside. In the large hall, other than the maids, there were only 3 people drinking. Gang leader, vice gang leader, and military advisor. The 3 of them were clearly drunk. Emotionji also seemed to be unrestrained. Pa, today you're all drunk? Only I'm not. The 2 men on the other side were drunk. Nonsense, you're the one who's drunk. If you're not happy, drink more. Emotionji stood up shakily. He walked over with a bowl of wine. He staggered. Let's drink. Who's afraid? Come. The 2 men picked up their bowls and gulped down the wine. At this moment, Emotionji suddenly staggered. He appeared in front of the 2 men like a ghost. A cold and bright sword light flew past without warning. 2 arrows of blood spurted into the air. 2 heads rolled on the ground. The gang leader's head rolled on the ground. He couldn't believe it. His eyes were full of questions. But this was the last thing he wanted to say. He didn't say it out loud. I'm sorry, because I'm the one who makes the decisions here. I'm the only one who makes decisions. Emotionji said casually. There was a calm smile on his face. I'm sharpening my sword. How can I be under someone else? Not to mention a scoundrel like you. The 2 bodies fell down with a thud. Emotionji moved. The surrounding maids only had time to let out a scream. They covered their throats and slowly fell down. After a long time, Emotionji was covered in blood. He pushed open the door of the hall and suddenly rang the bell in front of the door. Everyone gathered around. Facing everyone's questioning eyes, Emotionji slowly said, the gang leader and the vice gang leader have been killed by me. Now, I'm the one who makes the decisions here. My words are the only orders here. Anyone who disobeys will die. Everyone was dumbstruck. Since I'm the one who makes the decisions here, we can't be called Wild Wolf anymore. From now on we'll be called Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Emotionji smiled and said slowly. Coupled with the blood all over his body, his faint smile was as scary as a demon's. Heavenly Armament Pavilion needs strict orders. From now on, anyone who disobeys orders will die. Emotionji looked around and said with a smile. He waved his hand. A few people suddenly stood up from the crowd and cut the people around them in half. The ones who were killed were all loyal subordinates of the original gang leader. It was just nice that each of them served one of them. It was a clean cut. Fresh blood flowed, and a bloody light appeared. The smell of blood instantly swept through the entire area. Everyone kept quiet out of fear, and no one dared to make the slightest movement. Those people went forward and knelt down. Long live Heavenly Armament Pavilion. We're willing to sacrifice our lives for the pavilion leader. Let's create a glorious future together. Emotionji smiled and looked at the clouds in the distance. He murmured, Heavenly Armament Pavilion will take over the entire Heaven Imperial Court. Today's legend will begin. In another place, at a junction, Dong Wuxiang held his dark saber and slashed like a demon. He forced a group of people in front of him. Are you going to hand it over? Are you going to submit? Are you going to kneel? Are you going to listen? As long as you listen to me, Second Master Dong will take you to eat and drink well in the future. Do you understand? If you understand, then tell me directly. Are you going to hand it over? Are you going to submit? Are you going to kneel? Are you going to listen? From now on, we'll be called Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Dong Wuxiang shouted, What is Heavenly Armament Pavilion? Heavenly soldiers and generals. We'll rob the entire Heaven Imperial Court. Behave yourselves. In another place. Where can I find a soulmate? The tip of Gu Duxing's floating sword slashed across the throat of an enemy in front of him. He landed on the ground amidst the splattering blood and faced the remaining people. Surrender or die. Surrender and join the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. You'll be my people. Those who don't surrender will die. In another place. Ao Shiyun transformed into a golden dragon and went on a rampage. His huge body, a divine dragon that only appeared in myths, was exceptionally shocking. Are you willing to surrender? Join the Heavenly Armament Pavilion? I, Ao Shiyun, will take you to roam the world. A golden-winged phoenix flew all over the sky, leaving behind streaks of incomparably dazzling traces in the air. Finally, it landed on a mountain. Little ones, this is what I stole this time. Everyone hurry up and cultivate. If anyone can't keep up with the progress, I'll skin him. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion and the Thief Hall must be at the forefront and not fall behind others. I, Ray Badong, cannot afford to lose face. Everyone remember, I'm the person with the highest cultivation level in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion other than the pavilion leader. I was, am and will still be. So, my subordinates must be the same. My subordinates don't need to be very strong, just the strongest. In another place. Great Demon King Tan Tan sat high on the throne, looking at the group of people who were crawling and trembling in front of him. He angrily scolded, "You bunch of trash! Are you all shocked by my handsomeness? Why aren't you speaking?" Ben Wang established the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, not to raise you trash to eat. If I don't see your results tomorrow, I'll cut off your heads and throw them into the cesspool. Soul-suppressing stone? What does that soul-suppressing stone have to do with us? Our current task is to make money. Make the most money and enhance our strength. Expand our influence. Do you understand? If you don't, come here and let me chop you. If you understand, then get lost. Go to work. Everyone retreated and ran all over the place to do things as if they were struggling for their lives. Tan Tan sat on the throne, took out a small mirror, and looked at himself. He raised his eyebrows and deeply sighed, "Damn, I'm handsome today. I'm really envious of that little girl Xie Danfeng. She can marry such a handsome man like me." Chapter 2070. This person's slender eyes shot out a ferocious look. He laughed coldly. "Do you really think that mysterious expert will stand up for you? Who do you think you are? You're just an ant." This guy was not stupid. When Chu Yang said this, he immediately guessed where Chu Yang's confidence came from. Chu Yang said indifferently, "Then you can wait and see. Let's see if you're done for first, or if I'm done for first. Let time prove who's speaking the truth." This person immediately hesitated. Chu Yang's tone is too certain. His life is in danger at every turn. However, when he thought of the benefits of taking back such a large piece of purple crystal jade essence, his blood boiled. The sovereign had been waiting for this purple crystal jade essence for 3,000 years. The sovereign's East-rising purple chi mysterious technique only lacked a complete piece of purple crystal jade essence to reach the highest level. Compared to the current situation, what was a small risk? Moreover, he had brought less than 1,000,000 purple cloud coins with him this time. Most of it was his own savings and not public funds. Moreover, looking at the auction of the purple crystal jade essence, 1,000,000 was definitely not enough to stop it. If he did not do this, how could he get it? Did he really have to give up his life savings? If other sects won it and he went to rob it, then the hatred would be even greater. He might as well gamble on this. He laughed sinisterly and said, "If that's the case, then I'll wait and see if you're done for or I'm done for." Pa. As he spoke, he shouted loudly, "Fierce words are fierce words, but an auction is an auction. I've been waiting for quite some time now, and since no one else has made a bid, the result is clear. This piece of purple crystal jade essence is mine. We, the Iron Blood Alliance, aren't unreasonable people. But if anyone dares to obstruct us, then don't blame us for fighting to the death." This sentence was very tough, but also very shameless. It showed that he was using his power to oppress others, tearing away the last bit of cover. Many people snorted angrily. The words of the Iron Blood Alliance's man had obviously angered everyone. Shui Xian's eyes flashed. She wanted to stop him, but in the end, she did not move. The Iron Blood Alliance was naturally nothing to be afraid of, but was it worth it because of Chu Yang? Is this Chu Yang the same Chu Yang? Looking at his age, he seems to fit the criteria. I must not allow him to harm Mo Qingwu's Dao heart. Might as well let the Iron Blood Alliance deal with it. Since Shui Xian didn't move, the others naturally wouldn't move either. It was one thing to be angry, but it was another thing to truly go up against the Iron Blood Alliance. Especially since there were no benefits to be had, and it was only a momentary dispute of personal feelings. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. The person who had just come in frowned. He stared at Chu Yang. He wanted to see what choice Chu Yang would make in this situation. Chu Yang's approach was very generous. He smiled and said, "There was a small interlude just now. Now that the interlude is over, let's auction our savings." The last bidder, Iron Blood Alliance, bid 100,000. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? 100,000 going once. 100,000 going twice. 100,000 going thrice, sold. Bang. The gavel fell. Chu Yang looked at this person and said with a faint smile, "Sir, you can go and handle the formalities now. You must hand over the money and deliver the goods at the same time. As for the future, it will depend on your luck." This person laughed and said, "No matter what happens, the Iron Blood Alliance will take it on." A faintly discernible voice said, "Based on what you're saying, can I interpret it as the Iron Blood Union taking responsibility for this matter? Regardless of the consequences? Regardless of the cost?" This person's heart skipped a beat. This voice came abruptly and was even more ethereal. The source of the voice was obviously in this hall, but he just couldn't tell where it came from. Not to mention him, even Shui Xian and Hai Lianbo couldn't tell where this voice came from. But at this moment, he was like riding a tiger. He couldn't give in. He said in a low voice, "That's right. The Alliance Master needed this thing, so the Iron Blood Alliance naturally had to take it on. Now that the matter had been settled, any consequences and costs were worth bearing." That ethereal voice said, "Very good, very good, very good, very good." It said, "Very good," a few times in a sinister tone. Then there was no more sound. Chu Yang said indifferently, "This auction house is still the Chu clan's territory. Please leave your name." This person smiled strangely and said, "Since I have offended you, I might as well offend you all the way. I am the third Alliance Master of the Iron Blood Alliance. I am the third greedy wolf Gu Xinwu." As he said this, he waved his hand and laughed. He went forward to pay the money. "Young, I heard that you are a doctor, and your medical skills are quite good, but it's a pity that you only look at men and can't do it. As the saying goes, if you can heal, you can't heal yourself. After the auction, quickly go and have your wounds treated. Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you when you die. This time, it's because you didn't respect your elders, so I'll give you a small lesson. If there is a next time, I will slaughter your whole clan. Of all the things you shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have encouraged others to mock me." A wave of energy silently floated near. Chu Yang only felt a pain in his chest, and his head was dizzy. He spat out a mouthful of blood. This greedy wolf Gu Xinwu actually did it. The reason for this was because Chu Yang's words of "married" had caused everyone to ridicule him. He didn't dare to offend so many people at the same time, but he didn't have too many scruples about Chu Yang, who was the instigator. Especially when Chu Yang was so weak. Just as he said, "Since I have already confirmed my crime, I might as well offend you even more." Chu Yang's body swayed. He chuckled and said, "Iron Blood Alliance. Iron Blood Alliance." He spat out another mouthful of blood. He hurriedly took a heavy pill to suppress the injury. He took a deep breath and instantly regained his composure. The three people of the Iron Blood Alliance had already disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang laughed and said as if nothing had happened, "Now, we will begin the auction of the fourth item, a pair of yin-yang poisonous dragon eyes. The auction will be the same as before. No reserve price, the highest bidder wins. Chu Yang's tone was very calm, as if nothing had happened. He was still as elegant as before. He was still good at stirring up the atmosphere. But with so many experts below, they all felt a chill in their hearts. If a normal person encountered such a situation, they would have already retreated in shame. But this guy in front of them had suffered such a big loss, and he could still continue to host the auction as if nothing had happened. He didn't even have the slightest bit of a strange expression. This was a bit strange. Almost everyone had the same thought. This Chu Yang must have a backup plan. Of course, if there was no backup plan, and there was no follow-up to this matter, then it meant that the mysterious guest might not exist. Then, Chu Yang was just a thick-skinned person without any morals. Let's see how this matter develops. Brother Hu was in a quiet room at the side, let out a low roar and silently chased out. Since you have the guts to cause trouble, you must have the awareness to bear the consequences. But not everyone could afford the consequences of accepting a loan. That's all. That person stared at Chu Yang, the corner of his mouth revealing a trace of a smile. He murmured, "Interesting, interesting. Very interesting." Then he suddenly disappeared. An empty chair quietly appeared in the packed auction house. No one noticed when this person came, and no one noticed when this person left. Hai Lianbo transmitted his voice to Snow Immortal. "Immortal, what do you think will happen?" Snow Immortal smiled lightly, "Between the two. But no matter what, this Chu Yang cannot be underestimated. As long as he has a certain amount of space and time to develop, he will not be an ordinary person." Hai Lianbo nodded in agreement. Men had their own pride and hot-bloodedness. It was already not easy for Chu Yang to endure now. If he was still able to do so, then his forbearance at this moment would be even more precious. "Elder Hai, I have a faint premonition," Snow Immortal said lightly. "Iron Blood Alliance. This time, they have really kicked an iron plate. I'm afraid they are going to be in big trouble." Hai Lianbo smiled bitterly. "I have the same feeling. After being arrogant for so long, they are defeated. Justice is not in people's hearts, but strength. That's all." The rest of the auction process was very smooth. The fourth auction item, the yin-yang poisonous dragon eye, was sold by Chu Yang for 500,000 purple cloud dollars. The next item, the soul of the purple crystal, was sold for a sky-high price of 2 million purple cloud dollars for the dreamlike veranda. As for the last piece of starwood, it was sold to Hai Lianbo of the Lingxiao clan for 1,300,000 purple cloud dollars. Chu Yang also truly understood that in this Heaven Imperial Court, only strength was recognized, regardless of right or wrong. In terms of value and practicality, the starwood was undoubtedly more precious than the soul of the purple crystal. However, the soul of the purple crystal's price was much higher than the starwood's. Even that piece of purple crystal jade essence, if not for the Iron Blood Alliance's interference, its price would probably be close to the starwood's. Although there were some hiccups along the way, Chu Yang was still very satisfied with the results of this auction. Even with the Iron Blood Alliance's interference, the total amount of purple cloud dollars obtained from this auction was still close to 1 million purple cloud dollars. This huge amount of wealth was enough for him to develop in the Heaven Imperial Court. Even if he had to support tens of thousands of people, he would not have to worry about food for the next 100 years. Of course, that kind of extravagant cultivation of heavenly treasures was not included. Near the end of the auction, Chu Yang received 17 to 18 telepathic messages at the same time. These people all hoped that they could have a chat with Chu Yang after the auction ended. Among them were the two top figures of the dreamlike veranda and the Lingxiao clan. They were not the only ones with good eyesight. There were also quite a number of others who could tell the aptitude of those two youths. Naturally, there was no one who did not want such geniuses. Chu Yang's eyes darted around. His joyful expression disappeared, and his face was full of worry. He murmured, "Why are so many experts looking for me?" The speaker was not unintentional, but the listener was even more intentional. Chapter 2071. Chu Yang's voice was very low, but what were the cultivations of the people present? Even if it was 1,000 times lower, they could still hear it clearly. Everyone who had the same idea felt their hearts skip a beat. Then they started to worry. They looked at each other and knew that there were so many people who had the same idea as them. They couldn't help but feel bad. Even when the two geniuses had been discovered, everyone had hoped that they had good foresight, that they would be able to recognize the talents and hope that they would be lucky. However, the reality was cruel. If you had good foresight, why couldn't others have good foresight as well? Now, there were too many wolves and too little meat. It was really awkward. Hai Lianbo suddenly stood up and said loudly, Ling Xiao faction's great elder Hai Lianbo invites little brother Chu for a talk. What do you think? Hai Lianbo's high-profile appearance made the other small sects sigh sadly and completely give up. With such a huge figure coming out, what else could they compete for? Who dared to compete? Of course, there were also some big sects that didn't give up. We are indeed not as good as your Ling Xiao faction, but we are not weak either. Besides, the conditions that we offer may not be worse than your Ling Xiao faction. Dreamlike Mundane World Pavilion, Sky Dome Spiritual Mountain Snowy Snow, Elder Hai and Brother Chu at the same time. What do you think, Brother Chu? Since both sides had decided to form an alliance, Xue Xian naturally had to help Hai Lianghua. Not to mention that she still had to figure out Chu Yang's identity. She had to come out. With Xue Xian's appearance, the other big sects all gave up and didn't dare to be rash. If it was only Hai Lianghua, everyone still had some confidence to compete. But now, Dreamlike Mundane World Pavilion had also come out and made their position clear. They had joined forces with Ling Xiao faction. The rest had no hope at all. Although everyone was unwilling, they could only swallow their anger. Facing two big figures at the same time was definitely not a joke. Chu Yang smiled in his heart and said, Seniors, please meet me in the back hall later. Everything was under control. Everything was going according to plan. Everything was as planned. Divine Dr. Chu is really resourceful. It's only been a few days since you broke through the void and came up here, but you've already built up a big business in Wuxia City. You've even gained the favor of the city lord here. Now, you've become the Heavenly Weapon Auction Hall Master, and you've even set an amazing record in your first auction transaction. The rare treasures displayed are even more eye-opening. I believe that even if this achievement isn't unprecedented, it's enough to show disdain for the current generation. Hai Lianbo had an amiable look on his face. His face was full of smiles as he gave his New Year's greetings. But he revealed Chu Yang's background in just a few sentences. This was naturally not surprising. With Hai Mingbo's status and influence, it was very easy for him to find out Chu Yang's details. He didn't even need to speak. He only needed to give a look, and a large number of people would investigate everything clearly. Then, they would gather all the information and report it to him. As a newcomer to the imperial court, to be able to achieve such accomplishments, this old man is extremely impressed. However, there's one thing that I'm rather puzzled about, and I hope little brother can clear it up for me. Hai Mingbo stroked his beard and said lightly, Logically speaking, this auction shouldn't have landed in your hands. Hai Mingbo's sunken eyes shot out a sharp ray of light. He said lightly, There are many qualified auction halls in this heavenly imperial court. In this Wuxia city, there's enough to find hundreds of auction halls. Why did it have to be you? And you haven't even been auctioned before. Chu Yang was stunned. This great elder Hai's face changed too quickly. He was still praising Chu Yang for being young and promising in the first sentence, and now he's questioning him. However, this sentence was very reasonable. Even if it was really inconvenient for the mysterious person who took out these rare treasures to come out personally, and he had to hand over something to Chu Yang, when it came to choosing, Chu Yang wouldn't have the chance to do so even if there were another 10,000 rounds. However, such a great thing just had to land in his hands? What was the reason? Chu Yang knew that if he were in Hai Mingbo's shoes, he would also ask, and he would also ask directly. Such a question not only pointed to the crux of the problem, but also cut off Chu Yang's chance to change the topic. He didn't even have time to think about other answers, and had to answer directly. In this way, the chances of it being the true answer would naturally be the highest. Even if it wasn't a completely true answer, it would definitely be very close to the true answer. Xue Xian looked at Chu Yang without blinking her beautiful eyes. Obviously, she was also waiting for the answer to this question. Why me? At this moment, he naturally couldn't not answer this question. However, this question was really not easy to answer. Because if he didn't answer well, all the things that Chu Yang had done before would all go to waste, and even a great danger would befall him. This matter does indeed have a hidden story behind it. Chu Yang made up his mind and said, "Since Elder Hai asked directly, I might as well tell you the whole story. Anyway, everyone is a part of the Eastern Royal Heavens, and this auction was actually entrusted by someone. And from there, I'll lead the thread." Entrusted by someone? Lead the thread? Hai Mingbo smiled and said, "I wonder who that person is? Where is he now?" This old man is all ears. Elder Hai, Xue Xian, what I'm going to say next may be a little beyond common sense, but it's something that I've personally experienced. Whether the two of you believe it or not, this is the truth. I'll say it first, and I hope the two of you won't take offense. Chu Yang said very sincerely. "Little brother, you can say it one by one. The two of us naturally believe that you won't casually make up a story to fool us. This old man and Xue Xian have been honed for countless years, and it's not to the extent that we can't tell the truth from the lies." Elder Hai said in a low voice, but the meaning in his voice was already faintly discernible. It's like this. Some time ago, a patient fell from the sky, and it's really a person who fell from the sky. Chu Yang revealed a very awkward expression and pointed to the sky. Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo looked at each other and nodded. The matter of a patient falling from the sky was certainly very sudden. Very few people knew about it. However, it wasn't that no one knew about it. And these two people had already known that such a strange thing had happened in Chu Yang's place. In fact, any bit of strange information in Purple Cloud City within a year had been collected by these two big sections. Now that the soul-suppressing stone ruins was involved, any bit of information could be of great use, and intelligence naturally ranked first. So, a person falling from the sky, this kind of thing that sounded absolutely inconceivable to ordinary people, was a matter of course in the ears of these two people. This junior has some experience in medical skills, and in the spirit of a doctor's benevolence, I tried my best to save this patient, and luckily saved him. It was this patient who gradually recovered after recuperating for a period of time, and introduced me to this business. Chu Yang's words gave people a subtle feeling that he was holding back a lot. But one thing was certain, this patient was definitely not an ordinary person. Hai Mingbo's face became serious, and he asked softly, "May I ask who this patient is? Where is he now?" Chu Yang frowned. "In fact, I also don't know his identity, and he didn't mention it until he left." As he said, he suddenly realized something and said, "Oh right, before he left me a jade pendant." Jade pendant? Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian asked at the same time. Chu Yang put his hand into his chest and said, "I don't know his identity, but this jade pendant is a very exquisite thing." Before he finished speaking, his hand had already reached out. In his palm, there was a jade pendant. This jade pendant was sparkling and green and looked very cute. Yen Russian never asked for his jade pendant back after he gave it to Chu Yang. At this moment, he took it out to use the tiger's skin as a banner. Hai Mingbo reached out and took it, and saw two big words engraved on the surface of the jade pendant, "Oath." Xue Xian exhaled a long breath. She and Hai Mingbo's expressions became serious. On the back of the jade pendant, there were 8 words written vertically. "A monarch's oath is the foundation of standing." There were 4 small words. "A word is as heavy as a mountain." At the bottom, there was an almost unrecognizable symbol. It was very blurry. But when Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian saw that special symbol, their expressions changed instantly. Obviously, when they saw the words and the symbol, they already knew who this patient was, and what his identity was. It was him. It was actually him. But how did the number 1 general of the Oath Division get so seriously injured? And he even fell from the sky. and landed in the geographically remote Wuxia city, Hai Mingbo and Shui Xian looked at each other, and they both felt that it was a little inconceivable and puzzling. Speaking of which, in terms of cultivation, both of them were higher than Yen Russian, and in Shui Xian's case, she was more than one level higher. Not only were the two of them prominent in their respective sects, but they were also high-ranking figures in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. However, Yen Russian was a government official. Compared to the city lord of Wuxia City, although he was also a government official, Elder Hai and Shui Xian would still give him some face, but they might not really take him seriously. If they really had something important to say, they would definitely ignore him completely. But if the person was Yen Russian, the two of them could not be mentioned in the same breath. They were two completely different things. Because besides being a government official, Yen Russian was also the #1 general in charge of the Oath Division. This kind of identity was close to the center. If necessary, Yen Russian's words could definitely reach the ears of Emperor Donghuang. This was serious. This kind of identity was enough to make the two of them pay more attention to him. They never expected that it was Yen Russian who stepped forward and introduced that mysterious guest. Did that mean that this person was actually a government official? When the two of them thought of this, a strange feeling arose in their hearts. Chapter 2072. While they were talking in the auction hall, something happened outside as well. After successfully obtaining the purple crystal jade essence, the third leader of the Iron Blood Alliance, Greedy Wolf Gu Xanwu, didn't stay any longer. He chose to leave immediately. In order to obtain this piece of purple crystal jade essence, the Iron Blood Alliance had become the target of public scorn in the auction house. Those super sects didn't make a move now, but that didn't mean they wouldn't after the auction. Once they made a move, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. So Gu Xanwu left at once. Right now, the remaining 3 auction items were attracting everyone's attention, creating an opportunity for Gu Xanwu to escape. In fact, when Gu Xanwu attacked Chu Yang just now, he wanted to give him a hard time. Even if Chu Yang didn't die, he would be seriously injured. But the moment he attacked, Gu Xanwu changed his mind. If anything happened to Chu Yang, or even if he was seriously injured, this auction would be over. At that time, he wouldn't be able to leave. So he held back and only caused Chu Yang to suffer some internal injuries. No matter how good his plan was, it couldn't compare to the change. This piece of purple crystal jade essence had to be returned as soon as possible. If the leader could use this piece of purple crystal jade essence to break through to the peak of the heaven level, then the overall strength of the Iron Blood Alliance would rise to another level. In other words, they wouldn't need to fear anything in the future. But just as Gu Xanwu thought, his plan couldn't compare to the change. He had just turned a corner and was about to return to the Jin clan when a green figure suddenly appeared in front of him without a sound. "You want to leave?" This person's beard fluttered as he smiled at him. "What? Scared?" On the roof, something that looked like a little white cat quietly crouched down. "What the hell? This person looks very strong. Master whose cultivation hasn't fully recovered yet, so I'm not this person's match." "Who are you?" Gu Xanwu asked cautiously. Although he couldn't see through his opponent's strength, his intuition told him that the person in front of him was very strong. You don't have the right to ask who I am. All you need to know is that I don't like you. Furthermore, I really like that piece of purple crystal jade essence." The green-robed old man's robes fluttered as he spoke. This person's words were very straightforward. In an instant, their opposing positions were clear and there was no room for reconciliation. "You like it?" Gu Xanwu's eyes shone with a cold light. "There are many people who like this jade marrow. So what if you like it? The purple crystal jade essence is right here. Let's see if you have the ability to take it away." Gu Xanwu instantly pushed his cultivation to the peak. Since there was no way to resolve this peacefully, he could only use force to resolve this. The green-robed old man nodded in agreement and sighed. "This sentence is really very reasonable." Suddenly, his body floated, and a hand reached out. Looking at his posture, he actually wanted to strangle Gu Xanwu. Gu Xinwu almost laughed out loud. Was this guy looking for death? To think that he would be able to use such a crude method. He had overestimated the strength of the person in front of him. He was only SOSO. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, it was followed by endless shock. Even the other two companions beside him were shocked to the point of insanity. Because the three of them discovered at the same time that the moment the old man made his move, the air around them became dense and inseparable. The three of them couldn't move at all. They couldn't even blink their eyes. They could only watch as the broad right hand in front of them stretched out at an extremely slow speed. Then, it easily grabbed Gu Xinwu's neck. Then, Gu Xinwu was lifted up by that person. His feet were off the ground, and Gu Xinwu was like a salted fish that had been dried up. The green-robed old man held Gu Xinwu in one hand and sighed, "To be honest, I really don't want to rob you. So, I'll give you a chance. Give me the purple crystal jade essence. This old man won't rob you, but if someone is willing to give it to me, that's another matter." Gu Xinwu glared with grief and indignation. His two legs kicked helplessly in the air. If not for the fact that he couldn't move and didn't dare to move, he would have spat out a mouthful of blood. "Isn't this robbing? Willing to give it to you?" The level of shamelessness in these words was really at the peak of perfection. "Are you willing to give it to me? Why aren't you saying anything? Are you silently agreeing?" The green-robed old man asked amiably. As he spoke, he loosened his grip on the three of them. Gu Xinwu's feet landed on the ground again. He gasped for air. That feeling of suffocation almost made him collapse. But the ferocity that had been cultivated for a long time was deeply ingrained. He opened his eyes wide and cursed, "Give it to you? Who do you think you are?" Before he could finish, the old man stretched out his hand again and easily grabbed his neck again. Then, pa 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 pa, a flurry of slapping sounds rang out one after another like a violent storm. Gu Xinwu's head swayed back and forth with the slaps. It was very rhythmic and crisp. Then the old man put him down. He used one hand to grab his neck and used a bit of force. Gotcha! Gu Xinwu suddenly realized that his entire face was facing backwards. His head had turned at least 180 degrees. Gu Xinwu did something that most people in the world couldn't do. Because he could see his own back from the front. He could even clearly see his own butt. "Are you willing to give it to me now?" The green-robed old man said softly, "I'm a law-abiding person. I've never broken the law. I've never stolen or robbed." "Really?" Gu Xinwu was about to cry. What was this situation? Why did he meet such a pervert? What kind of person was this? His head was still facing backwards. "Huh? My head has clearly been twisted to the back. Why am I still not dead?" "Don't worry. You won't die for now. Why would I casually kill people?" The green-robed old man said kindly, "Hey, I'm asking you a question. Hurry up and answer me. I'm old. My patience isn't good." Gu Xinwu finally collapsed. I'll give it to you." The green-robed old man let out a sigh of relief. "Really? Are you sincere? Don't force yourself." Gu Xinwu nodded. Really? Not forced at all." He was surprised to find that even though his head was twisted backwards, he could still nod. Holy shit, this was an indescribable miracle. Are you saying that you're willing to give it to me? Is it like this?" The green-robed old man said worriedly. "I don't want you to force yourself at all." "Really?" Gu Xinwu cried. He had no choice but to cry when meeting this kind of person. "You restrained me and made me unable to move. First you beat me up and twisted my neck backwards. Then you said that you're not willing to force me. Why was this matter so strange?" "Boss, don't play with me like this. I'm willing to give it to you." "Really?" Gu Xinwu said with tears. Since you're willing, why are you crying? Are you touched?" The green-robed old man said unhappily. "You're an adult now. You don't know how to do things at all. You don't even know how to smile?" Gu Xinwu quickly revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. "I'm really willing to give it to you. Your smile isn't up to standard. I mind it very much. I won't accept it." The green-robed old man said seriously. Gu Xinwu really wanted to die. "You're here to rob me, but you still say, I won't accept it. It's like I'm rushing to give it to you. The old man said angrily, "You're making me feel very uncomfortable. It's like I'm forcing you. Hurry up and adjust yourself. Smile more amiably, more kindly, more warmly. There's no need to be warmly." But what Gu Xinwu wanted to do the most was to cry out loud. Under these circumstances, how could I be so fucking relaxed, warm, and kind? Do you want to fucking play me to death? I forgot. You're still facing backwards. The old man said lightly. Gotcha. Gu Xinwu's neck was twisted again. It actually faced forwards and returned to its original position. And no, it didn't return to its original position. Because when he twisted it, it was twisted to the right. Now that he twisted it back, it was still twisted to the right. In other words, Gu Xinwu's neck was completely twisted, a full 310 degrees. And then it returned to its original position. Yes, it was the position, not the position. Right now, Gu Xinwu's neck was in the shape of a fried dough twist. It also looked like a fried dough stick. Hurry up and smile like I said. Then express your sincerity and willingness to give it to me. Don't waste my time. Do you think everyone is as idle as you? Hurry up. The green-robed old man scolded unhappily. Gu Xinwu closed his eyes and resisted the urge to cry out loud in his heart. He forced himself to gather his emotions, and then his swollen face revealed a flattering smile like a dog. Senior, this purple crystal jade essence, I'm giving it to you with all my sincerity. It's just a small token of my appreciation. I hope Senior won't dislike it. The green-robed old man said angrily, Why aren't you willing? Did I force you? Say it again and add the words willing. I'm not robbing you. Gu Xinwu had already completely collapsed. He put on a flattering smile again and nodded. Senior, this purple crystal jade essence is something I'm willing to give to you. Yes, that's more like it. The green-robed old man took the purple crystal jade essence from Gu Xinwu's hands with satisfaction. He turned around and was about to leave when he turned back. Right, do you think I'm bullying you? Gu Xinwu shed tears. No, absolutely not. Well, then I didn't force you, right? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.